welcome to another Michigan Progressive Special Conversation. Today we're here with Greg Bowens, running for chair of the Michigan Democratic Party. So I have a lot of questions to ask, but actually, first of all, everybody has a journey that they've been on that got them to where they are now, and where you are now is running for the MDP chair. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, sort of introduce yourself a little bit, let people know where you're coming from?
Sure. How do I put this? Because you can start anywhere in the story and sort of get up there, but I'm from Detroit. I graduated from Cass Tech, Wayne State, spent some time at Morehouse, spent some time in the Navy, and while I was at Wayne State, there was a protest going on actually, and that protest was going on to force the university to recognize Martin Luther King Day as a holiday where people can sort of get off.
Today is Martin Luther King Day.
Today is Martin Luther King Day, right? There's irony here.
Awesome.
And I was walking through the mall, and a friend of mine, who's now a friend, Crystal, came up to me, and she was writing for the West End, and she asked me, what did I think about the protest and should Wayne State? She interviewed me about it.
Sure.
And so I told her how I felt about it, and then afterwards I said, wow, I could do that. How do you do that? Because I was an English major already. And she told me to go down to the South End and talk to them, and that's what I did, and I was off to the races. And so I had always been the kind of person that paid attention to what was going on and was active in life around me,
Sure.
but not so much politically. I mean, I voted every time I could, and I'd argue politics ad nauseum with people, but I wanted to be the kind of person that made a difference. So journalism seemed like the right thing, although all the other English majors thought, and the staff, they thought I was crazy. They were like, why are you doing that? They write on the 8th grade level.
Right.
You are the next great writer. But anyway, I wanted to change the world, and I thought that by doing what had been done before, exposing, corruption and the stories, people could make more informed decisions, and we would have a better world, a better democracy,
Sure.
as it were. And so I got into the journalism program as a minor at Wayne State, and the Journalism Institute for Minorities, which is now called something else. And then after I left there, I had worked while I was there, because Wayne State is a working school, I was working at Cranes and did an internship at the Free Press on their business desk, and broke camp and went to Business Week and covered automotive supplier companies and cars and stuff like that in Detroit, and then left there and went to Congressional Quarterly magazine, where I got to cover defense and foreign policy, elections in 6 states, military appropriations, budgets, and that whole process on the Hill. And that was a fascinating experience to have, because growing up, elected officials and Congress people, in particular, were seen as like these heroes, these larger than life figures. And John Conyers was our congressman at the time, and I was sort of born into John Conyers, his whole career. I mean, he was already a congressperson, when I came up, and so having the opportunity to be in Washington D.C. and see how Congress works, and to interact with people, on that level, not from a sort of groupie type level, like, oh my God, it's the congressman or the congresswoman or whatever, but asking them the serious questions of the day about what was going on.
Right.
And that was another sort of real empowering kind of experience for me, to be a journalist and to ask people who were in charge, in the know, what was going on. It got really interesting when I would do that as related to military appropriations, because we covered, my particular beat was also covering the appropriations for the black budget, meaning the CIA, NSA, and all that stuff. And, trying to get, I could never get the guy in charge of the CIA to go on the record about anything or talk about anything,
It's kind of his job now.
Right. He was very, but it was interesting the way that he would be evasive. It would just, he was there, and then they'd be asking a question, and then suddenly he was gone. And I'd say, look up from my notepad and say, what happened? But in either case, since it was our job to, find out what was going on, I would, ask the congressional people And then they would say, well, by law we can't really talk about that. So then I would just go to the to the military industrial complex and start asking contractors. I heard your budget got cut. I hear this is going on, and they would be like, no, and they want to play the game.
Sure.
And you'd find your lever to get the information that you needed to. Now, I hope that the information that I got and was able to report on was always accurate and was not being manipulated by some unseen powers. But I don't know. But I do know that kind of experience of being a reporter, dealing with difficult situations, and interviewing people not from a position of weakness, but from a position of strength, and taught me how to always operate from a position of strength. Reporters don't have any magical powers.
Right.
They're just people.
Right.
And so anyway, I got on that road. So I'm on the journalism road. I'm doing my thing, and I come back and I started working at the Flint Journal, covering government, and then shortly after that, like 6 months later, boom, I was at the Detroit News. Then while I was at the Detroit News, the strike happened.
Right.
So I got a young family. My kid was 6, 8 months old. No, he was old enough to be on my shoulders, and I was scared. And I didn't really understand what was going on. I'd never been part of a union before, even though I'd worked at other papers, and certainly never part of a union to the extent that there was that much acrimony. You know what I mean? And I remember being at the Anchor Bar, and people were talking about it, and I really wanted to be at the Detroit News at that time, because in the journalism program at Wayne State, there was a big push to diversify all these newsrooms around here.
Sure.
And so I had friends that were already working at the Detroit News, and I wanted to take my place among them. But when I got there, people were really mad because of what was going on, and I looked around, and it was well, this guy's been here for 10 years, and she's been here for 15 years, and he's been here for 18 years. If they're getting screwed over, what chance do I have?
Right.
Really, none.
Sure.
And but to make the decision to overcome my own personal fears and how I was going to provide for my family, and seeing this great journalism career that I was starting to get going go poof because of a strike was more than a notion for me. So anyway, we went on strike, and it was only supposed to last, like the Civil War. Oh, just a couple days.
Right.
We'll whoop them, and we'll be right back.
Right.
And that thing dragged on, for a long time. So
Yeah.
Summer went to winter, and I'm outside, and I'm working odd jobs, and then finally I just applied for and got a job working, part-time contract with the city of Detroit. Dennis Archer was the mayor at the time, and so while I was doing that, the deal for building Ford Field broke. All the pieces fell into place. Mayor Mike Duggan, who is now the current mayor, who was then working for the Wayne County executive at McNamara, was sort of riding herd on all this, and they wanted somebody that could write the press release. And so somebody upstairs said, we got this guy downstairs who used to write for Business Week. I'm sure he would be helpful in making that kind of thing happen. And so I ran the gauntlet and met Dennis Archer and wrote the release and put all the pieces together for that, and they invited me to come and work for the administration.
Cool.
And I eventually did. So the strike was still going on, but that had happened, and I had a lot of great experiences being the deputy press secretary, and then eventually the press secretary for Dennis Archer during a time of some rebuilding in Detroit. There was probably about $6 billion in economic development that had occurred during that time, and those were the Clinton years, so things were going pretty good. And when he decided not to run again, I stayed on, and after I left, I got into public and media relations. But throughout that time, I'd already been working on different campaigns. His re-election campaign, where he won 8% of the vote. There were, a lot of bond proposals that had gone through and all that stuff. And that was sort of like, and then being exposed to that was really my first exposure to the Democratic Party.
Sure.
And so I got to introduce the Democratic Party on a level that, you know, most people don't get introduced to it because you're working for a big city mayor.
Right.
And so the national convention comes along and you know, you're boom, you're in there and you're in the mix.
Right.
He had a different approach than some other politicians because they started to encouraged his people, you know, folks up and down the chain in the administration, to get involved in Democratic Party politics at the county level, at the district level. And so, you know, it was expected that you would run to be a precinct delegate. And you would, upon becoming a precinct delegate, you would take those duties seriously and do things. So he wanted...
So you as the press secretary, he expected you to be a precinct delegate?
I was a precinct delegate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't matter. Department heads, you know, folks were precinct delegates. Now, some did more work than others.
Sure.
You know, but you know, people would show up when they needed to show up, and argue the whatever's on the floor, and certainly to try and make sure that the mayor would get the endorsement and try and get help from the party to be reelected.
Sure.
Even though it's a nonpartisan seat, right?
Right.
So that was, you know, that kind of view of the Democratic Party, and being able to talk to, you know, state party chairs and talk to other mayors and other people who were doing the work gave me, I guess, a cherished view of what was going on. I didn't really understand it, you know, because I just went out and voted, you know, or somebody knocked on my door and I said, oh, great, yeah, give me the stuff and I'll do my thing. And after we left office, I struck out on my own and started doing my own thing. And because of the positions that I had taken, because working with Dennis Archer and trying to defend democratic values and move democratic positions forward, you know, that's where I was. You know, Blue Dog Democrat is sort of the way that I've always been referred to. And
let me ask you, what do you mean by that? Because a lot of people don't know what that is, actually.
Yeah.
What do you mean by Blue Dog Democrat?
It's like anybody, but if they're not a Democrat, forget it.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. So that's distinct from Blue no matter who, because if they're not a Democrat, forget it is different than whatever Democrat is on the ticket I'm going to vote for.
Right. Yes.
Those are two different things.
Those are two different things, and you know, I get what you're saying. Some people will just pull the lever for, you know, anybody and put it down there. But what I've come to find in, you know, the work that I did as a public relations professional is that I use this analogy because it's really important. People like to divorce themselves from the things that they do in their professional career, because they just say, well, that was my job, but that's not who I am as a person. And for me, in trying to, in being in the fight for hearts and minds, it's important to not abuse that kind of thing, to try to stick to the truth, and to never advance something that's not true, and twist reality in ways that is designed to fool people. You know, 5 people get shot in a house, that's just bad, man. There's no way to, like, you know, get around this tragedy that has occurred. So trying to say that, you know, and I hate it when some folks do this on the cop scene, they'll go, well, you know, they know each other. As if that's some sort of...
Doesn't that make it worse?
Right, exactly, you know. It wasn't a random crime, like, okay, all right, okay, well, you know, it's still bad. It means that we still have an issue in relationship to guns. It means there are all kind of things involved in that. And I think that when you take that approach, you begin to understand that it's just not good. And I use this as an analogy. There are people that hop around, and they'll go from Republican to Democrat, or they will go and they will work for this corporation and that corporation to cover up something that was wrong. But that's not the way to really solve problems.
Right.
And I really don't think that's what, you know, being a public relations professional is all about. And maybe it is for people at a junior level, but usually when I'm pulled into situations, it's to help solve a situation and move it forward. So anyway, all those things lead up to, me deciding to run for chair, because I've been involved in 22 different campaigns on the state, local, and federal level. I've never been involved in, at the top level of a presidential campaign or anything like that. But I've seen firsthand how challenging it can be for someone to raise their hand and say, I want to run for office. And the gauntlet that they run in doing that. And the media gauntlet that folks have to run through to do that. Now, people tend to think that you can say anything in the media and just sort of get away with it, but you can't. Eventually it catches up with you.
Sure.
Especially these days,
Right.
with the internet and shows like this and all this stuff.
Sure.
And the responsibility that people have to be honest with the voter,
Right.
and to stick by the voter, to me, is really important. Donna Brazil had said once, that maybe a couple times, that as Democrats, we don't often stress the contract between the voter and the people that we elect. And I take that to heart. And I think that that for too long, as I've been coming around, we have let people off the hook for not living up to the democratic values that we have, and not doing the things that they said that they were going to do when they were standing before, particularly Democratic primary voters, and getting away with it. And so 2016 had rolled around, and we got beat. It's not the first time that we lost a presidential election. I mean, a heartbreaker
so
was.
hold on a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is really important. Clinton was not my preferred candidate. I did vote for her, but she did not lose the vote. Okay, she did not lose a Democratic vote. To the extent that we have a Democratic vote in this country, she didn't lose it. She won that by about 3 million votes.
Right.
Okay, but we have an undemocratic process called the Electoral College, where there's only 538 people that get to vote. That's the vote that she lost. So I just think that that's people think that it's nitpicking, but I think it's really important when what we're just saying about being honest. And I'm not saying that you weren't. It's the way that we normally talk.
Right.
Okay. We need to stop talking that way. I think we need to be clear about how our system actually works, rather than mouthing what our system wants us to say about it.
Well, I mean, the system is not a person, but at the same time, here's what I think: that argument can always be made for whatever side doesn't win. Bush Gore, if you recall, was so tight that it went to the Supreme Court. And you can say we lost by what? 1 vote?
Well, no, I would again say that Gore won the vote.
Right.
And then the Electoral College, 538 people, voted for somebody else.
Right.
Okay. Those are the facts on the ground.
Those are the mechanics of it. Yes, and we know. I don't know if everybody that's watching knows why the Electoral College was set up in the first place.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
And so, do we need to go into the system of racism and bigotry that allowed for it to be set up?
Right.
It was part
of that compromise,
well,
yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
it was definitely part of that compromise. And so we haven't gotten away from that. But when I was talking about Hillary lost, I'm talking about losing in Michigan.
Okay, gotcha.
And the responsibility that we all had as Democrats to convince people to vote for her. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians, and that there was a big-time Russian espionage campaign going on. Being the president of the Grosse Pointe Harper-Woods NAACP, having been around a lot of social justice organizations, it wasn't just about throwing up ads on Facebook. There were people on the ground here who had worked infiltrated groups and had sowed the seeds of discontent, paid for, protests. And some of those people who had actually worked with them were well-meaning activists on both sides and not knowing. Nobody's going to knowingly work with a Russian. Well, I shouldn't say that, but because there are people who spy all the time, right?
Well, apparently Flynn did.
Right. Exactly. The head of the NSA is a Russian asset.
Right.
How does that happen? Well, greed is how it happens. But in either case, after that had happened, and knowing that those kind of influences out there, but not really knowing the depth of it, one thing was clear to me, and remained clear to me, was that as a party, we are weak. We have weak leadership at the top, and maybe it's been too compromised by, I call it the corptocracy. You know, companies who are treated as individuals, but don't act like individuals. You know what I'm saying? There's only one person. There's one chairman at one time, but then that person leaves and somebody else comes along, and they do whatever the heck they want to do and say, I'm doing it for you, the shareholder. So like when I was on strike and people had stock in Knight Ridder and stock in Gannett. You know, and the irony is that they were justifying crushing people to get the very same people who hold stock money.
Right. Well, so for example, this is another one of those places where I think we ought to be clear. We have a number of very, very, very strong laws that make it very, very easy to create collective bargaining units for rich people. We call them corporations.
Right.
But a corporation...
I'm going to use that. I like that.
A corporation is just a collective bargaining unit for its shareholders, which are typically dominated by wealthy people who own, the top 1% of the population owns something like 75% of the stock in all of the corporations in the country. Right. Okay.
Now let's not forget that they democratized the idea of stock, so that the rich people, so that more people like us would buy the stock, thinking that we would get rich, but in actuality, they would dilute the value of the stock so that we'd get less and they'd get more. Right. And they'd
with
our own money.
Right. And they'd still be in control.
Right.
Okay. Because they own enough of the stock that they're the ones that actually get to elect the collective bargaining unit, the CEO and the board of directors, and
that's the real deal. And then if you do start to get close, they'll just issue more stock and dilute it.
Right. So for example, I literally laughed out loud when I heard Elizabeth Warren's proposal that we're going to have companies that have $1 billion or more in revenue. She wants they should have that the workers should elect 40% of the board. Well, you know what 40% of the board gets you? Not enough to make any decisions.
Right, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Not enough.
Not enough to actually have any formal power.
Right.
All the formal power still belongs to the people who elect the 60% of the board, that can outvote the workers. So I was totally thinking.
That's interesting. But but to the journey. When that happened, it's clear, and we've been doing this for a while. People have felt disenfranchised by the Democratic Party for a long time.
Absolutely.
As an African American growing up, the Democratic Party was the place where we felt like we could get a fair shake. Where you could see black mayors and black council people and black elected officials.
Sure.
And you didn't see that on the Republican side.
No.
So the idea that the Democratic Party was, a place that represented my views and would give me a fair shot and could be the champion, outside of politics in the real world to make sure that there was a level playing field and that every door wasn't slammed in our face. And so when I felt like what had happened in 2016, was that we were getting shafted. Everybody was getting shafted. And now it was white folks who, were waking up to the reality that they were getting shafted too, and that Trump was taking advantage of it. So the Republicans have been creeping for a very long time into the language, I think, of the Democratic Party, saying that they're fighting for the little guy. All of a sudden, they went from being the party of the rich people to the party for the working person. What are you talking about?
It's ridiculous.
And they were able to have that narrative and do that narrative, over time, and they keep chipping away, man. Everything they chip away at collective bargaining. They chip away at wages. They chip away at health care. And now I have these ridiculous arguments with conservatives who will stand there and tell me to my face that why should we have pensions? Why should you work someplace for 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it is, and why should it be society or the company's responsibility to take care of you for the rest of your life?
Right.
I was like, now this wasn't like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This is like
Yeah.
It happens today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't believe that we're having this argument because, I mean, I got my degree in English, but surely, people should have some understanding of history that pensions evolved because people were dying, man. They'd get old, they were useless to the company, and they'd be out in the street.
That's right.
And so we have pensions to protect them.
Yep.
So why are we having this argument again about this? We're having this argument again about this because Republicans are convincing people that it's in their best interest to not have to support, folks that have worked, as if it won't be their turn.
Right.
And the way that pensions work, I'm no pension expert or finance expert. You're the mathematician, but the people keep paying into the pension, and there are people who are not working anymore, so they're not paying into the pension. So you have to have enough people to continue paying into the pension, coupled with good investments, right? And now you get a stable pension system.
Right. Well, I would argue though that the way that our system is structured, the way that our system is structured, is itself not stable. Depending on how you count it, we've worked in the system that we call capitalism. There's actually that's actually not a very good label actually for the system, I would argue. We can talk about that another time. For the 2 or 3, depending on how you count it, 200 or 300 years that we've had capitalism, on average, capitalism has a downturn every 4 to 7 years. Okay, that's on average. So sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes it's a little bit shorter, etc. But the system itself is inherently unstable, and it's inherently unstable for reasons that we understand very well. Again, that's a longer conversation. What we're really coming down to is, for example, right now we have a situation in our economy where very, very few people have a huge amount of wealth. And a very, very large number of people, the vast majority, the 99%, have pretty close to nothing.
Right.
Okay? And when you look at a corporation, the way that we're told that corporations are supposed to work, what you have is a large number of people that come to work every day and do a whole bunch of stuff, and a very, very tiny number of people that decides what they do, where they do it, how they do it, and what happens with the proceeds from the fact that they did it.
Right.
Okay? Well, that looks an awful lot like the macro scale, where we have a very few people at the top that are in control of, the vast amount of wealth, and everybody else has pretty much nothing.
Well, while you're considering that and breaking down the that argument, I think there's one thing that you should consider that you're leaving out.
Sure.
And that is that for black and brown people, and folks, the way that race has worked on this thing, it's always been, and I'm talking like the Irish got dogged at first, and the Germans came in and they got dogged at first and exploited, for their labor.
Right. And when they tried to get together with the black people that were being exploited for that, then actually is when the wealthy folks in the country created this idea of whiteness.
Exactly.
Because it used to be that Germans thought of themselves as Germans, and Irish thought of themselves as Irish, and etc. They didn't think of themselves as white.
No.
They didn't.
And
that was
that's true.
That whole idea was created by the wealthy in society who wanted to drive a wedge between people that didn't have wealth or power.
Exactly.
So
as long as you could escape the fate of the other people and be included in the higher society, then you felt like that everything was okay. So fast forwarding to where we are today, in the way that I think Trump and the Republicans have been able to exploit people has been to do that same thing again. Saying that the system is not fair to you, but it's supposed to be fair to you. Now we know it hasn't been fair to black and brown people and all this stuff, and it seems like they're getting too much. You see Jay-Z on TV, you've seen all these other folks, and and look how well they're doing, but you're not doing well. Your jobs are being shipped overseas, and stuff like that. In the meantime, there's affirmative action that's taking jobs away from you, and it's like, wait a minute, civil rights, social justice, treating people right is not a pie. You know, meaning that if I treat you with dignity and respect, that means that somehow I'm going to be treated with less dignity and respect.
Right.
If I give you opportunities,
Right.
that somehow that I can't have opportunities too. And so they in playing on people's fears, I think, is what has been going on for a long time. And I think that in the Democratic Party that we have let that slide too much. In our desire to win, we, you know, remember the triangulation thing with Clinton and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
which is what Clinton's team tried to do in 2016.
Right.
And let me say, being a mathematician, I look at the results and I look at this, and this is what happened here is that they had their error bars calculated for the national vote, and when it came down to smaller populations within it, they didn't have their error bars tight enough, and they thought they could get away with, you know, threading this needle, you know, in the upper Midwest, and I'll bet you that the numbers were right within their margin of error, and they just thought they were going to be a little bit over. That's totally a result of triangulation.
Absolutely, and so we have become in Michigan, and I saw this happening, and I saw the disconnect going on, and you know, my folks came up from Kentucky to Muskegon at the turn of the century, from the 18th to the 19th century. So they've been settled along, you know, the eastern part of Michigan, the western part of Michigan for a long time. I'm like the fifth generation here. And man, people have been working hard in that area forever.
Sure. From
wood to paper to ball bearings to, you know, it's always been a tough life. Pretty country. You know, go fishing, go up to the dunes. You got all kind of stuff that you can do. Not far from Chicago.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, you know, it was hard. Yeah. It was hard. And so when we get up to the 70s, 60s is transition, the 70s and the 80s, where all these folks are making money, and people want to be a part of that, and so they're in there. And now we have affirmative action. And affirmative action wasn't seen as taking somebody else's job. It was simply seen as creating an opportunity in places where those opportunities don't exist. Right. Now, I'm president of the Grosse Pointe Harper Woods NAACP. That area has been known for being one of the wealthiest in the country, but it also had its challenges in relationship to race. You know, the Fords lived there. You know what I mean?
Henry Ford was a fascist. There's no question about it.
And some other things, right?
Yeah, sure.
And some other things. Have you ever toured the Ford house?
I haven't toured the Ford house. I did. My mother bought a house in Highland Park just down the street from his first plant. Yeah. So I used to go and hang out around over there and check it out. But yeah, I've worked in the auto industry before in a number of different ways. And but yeah, so and I'm familiar with Ford's politics and all of that. So,
well, the Ford house there in Grosse Pointe Shores, I think it is. They give tours all the time, and if you ever get the opportunity, please take the tour, because you know the casualness of wealth is unbelievable. I mean, you'll go into like the kids' room, and you'll see like a vase from like, you know, the 6th century or something. Right. That was in their room. Sure. Now they shared rooms, interestingly enough, even this big giant mansion, you know, from what I was told on the tour, that, you know, that you didn't get your own room when you were a kid. You know, you had a room, but the fact that there would be a priceless artifact in this room, to me, speaks volumes about, you know, the wealth disparity that had existed even then. Sure. And so while, you know, Ford, you know, created the first livable wage, as it were, for people that worked in the plants, what they were making, what you were making on the floor, and what they were getting at the top, was huge. Right. And remember, it's still that way. And remember, his reason for making sure they had a livable wage is so they could buy his cars. Oh yeah, absolutely. He was getting it back on the back end. He wasn't, you know. Well, you know what? But and we see that today. So that democratizing of the wages is something that we embrace, while we, you know, kind of turn a blind eye to this other part of the disparity. And that that blind eye has gotten harder and harder and harder and harder to turn away from the big time disparity.
Sure.
That was the argument in 2016. And as Michiganders, we've known tough times. I have walked, I'm telling you, man, I've walked to the beaches of Belle Isle and the beaches at Big Bear. I've been to Hancock and Holden, you know, and up there by Marquette and up there Mackinac and all that stuff.
Sure.
You just drive up 75. Oh, pick your freeway, start driving, and start looking left or right. You know, once you get out of the, like, you know, Auburn Hills or, you know, Detroit or Oakland County, and you start looking, you'll see people living in rusted out, you know, houses, rusted out trailers. You'll see extreme poverty. And but we never talk about that.
No.
And somehow the language of the Democratic Party, with the triangulation stuff, went from talking about the poor and helping the poor to focusing on the middle class and then convincing everybody that they were in the middle class.
Right.
You know, so it, when 2016 came around, you know, I saw this happening. I saw Trump whip people into a frenzy, and I also saw people that I know up in the UP who aren't making it. And people, you know, in Royal Oak Township or Redford Township or Macomb Township not making it. And we're not speaking to them. We're not reaching out to them. We're talking about the middle class, and they're like, wow, one day I hope I can get to the middle class.
Sure.
So that kind of thing is the thing that, like, really drove me to say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna raise my hand and see what I can do here. Because we're not in the fight where people are. We're always drifting to the right. And I was inspired by some of the things that I saw happening with progressives. Now, I always considered myself a liberal, and then I was going to the Progressive Caucus, and I, you know, when affirmative action got pushed back and stuff like this, I said, you know, no, we're not being radically inclusive enough in our approach to things. You know, we know there should be free health care for everybody. Why are we even having this discussion about it? You know, we know that public education should be a right. Why are we even having a discussion about taking money from public schools and giving vouchers to people? Well, we're having that discussion because, you know, some of these rich folks don't want to have to pay all that money. It's not like they can't afford it. But why? you know.
Well, and a lot of them have a belief that is entirely false, but they have a belief that you know, if they did it, then anybody can do it.
Exactly.
You know, and not recognizing differences of circumstance create differences of outcomes. Which is not to say that, for example, a lot of the, you know, on the so-called intellectual right will talk about how liberals and progressives just want equality of outcomes. It's not at all what I'm about. But if you want to have equality of opportunity, for example, then everybody's got to have the same kind of school that they get to go to, with the same caliber of teachers and the same caliber of resources. We don't have that until you you know, and it's not only what they show up at school; it's what they have at home. Because we have tons of research that says that you can have a really great school like that, and it will have some impact. But the majority of the impact is, what is the situation like at home? Do people have regular meals? Do their parents have time to read to them? Those are the kinds of things that really change what is possible for somebody, you know, from where they're coming from.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's.
Well, I mean, but you know, the democratizing of, we talked about the democratizing of the stock market. You know, you can that principle has been applied everywhere, right? Coca-Cola used to be a fancy thing, and then, you know, they said, let's sell it to everybody and make even more money. I think as we had done more and more and more of that, and, you know, black folks and white folks and Indian folks and Asian folks all started to get together and see and stop seeing the differences and started seeing more of the things that we had in common, then, now this is just my opinion, you know, then the issue of class and economics became more and more stark. You know? And that kind of starkness, I believe, allowed for more people to see just how screwed they were getting. And it didn't matter if you were black or you were white or you were Asian or whatever, right? And so we started to say, well, go to college and everything's going to be all right. you'll get a good job. And now we know that's not really true, right?
Right.
And so what has been the default position, it seems like, with society has been to, I don't know how they're doing it, I don't know how we're doing it, but, you know, race seems to be the thing that is because I was born this way, that means I should have an opportunity, is what it seems like it's defaulting back to. Because you cannot, how can you convince a poor white person who lives in Houghton or Hancock, you know, that they're better off than the poor black person who lives in Detroit or Saginaw or Muskegon? You know, you really can't.
You're not.
Right, because it's like, you know, we're all, you know, we got, it's the same for us. But if we can convince people that they're not so bad off, that they're actually part of a middle class, you know,
Sure.
then the poor white person in Houghton and the poor black person in Saginaw, you know, if they're like, okay, well, you know, it's not so bad. We're middle class. But you're not. You're poor, man.
Right. That's right.
You know, they're convincing you. Can you send your kid to college?
Right.
Can you afford to take in a vacation upstate or downstate or outstate?
Right.
Can you offer your kids, you know, your children the kind of experiences that they need to see themselves as part of a larger world?
Right.
You know, yes, there are always going. No, I shouldn't even say that. It seems like there's always been really wealthy people, but it seems like now that the Democratic Party, we've been arguing about the wrong stuff, and that fight for the middle has left too many people out. And so I know that, you know, people that aren't, you know, like my mother, she votes Democratic. You know, she's not a member of the Democratic Party. She thought she was.
Yeah.
I said, Mom, you know, you got to go,
that,
right.
Yeah.
You got to go to the website and join.
Yeah, that's right.
Or go to this and join. But she would say, well, I remember. I said, well, you're a Democratic voter, Mom.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. But a lot of people don't get that.
Right. They don't get that because you know why? We don't tell them.
That's right.
And seeing us continually, you know, slide back. You know, we get a Republican gets elected governor. I'm just going to stick with the state for a minute.
Sure.
In England, it's like chop, 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 chop.
Right.
You know, get rid of mental health for the poor. Close them all down, and throw them out on the street and let them go to jail.
Right.
Who cares? And we all know that was bad. You know, they manufactured the welfare queen.
Right.
You know, and they put all these stipulations on, making it hard for people to get back on their feet. And then we get another governor, a Democrat, and Jennifer Granholm tries to hold the line. You know, and she's got this Republican legislature, and she's able to say, "Well, look what I stopped them from doing." But we're not able to get anything back that we lost.
Right, and then we have Whitmer that talks about, you know, and it won't say that that we have to do universal single payer.
Right.
This is what we need to do. Instead, she says we have to have affordable access.
Right.
You know, which is just a dog whistle for I'm going to protect the profits of insurance companies.
I hear you.
You know,
I hear you, man. I mean,
I
mean, I hear exactly what you're saying. I mean, keep talking, keep telling me, because I the way I look at it is that I went to the labor school. I saw the graph and the chart that said over time, you know, Democrats, they hold the line, then the Republicans get elected again, and they go doom, and then over time it's just a long slide, man. We never get it back.
Right.
And the same thing on productivity.
Sure.
You know, the more technology helps with workers, you would think that productivity goes up, but wages, they don't go up.
No. Well, because we have a system that allows people with wealth and power to decide how wages get distributed, and of course they distribute most of it to themselves.
Well, in a society where we're taught that more is better, and that there are limited resources, and those resources are diminishing, you know, then it becomes that sort of fight for survival. When in reality there is enough for everybody.
There is.
There is enough food. There's enough, but
right. So for example, people tell us that capitalism is the best system that we can have, and it's obviously failing in multiple ways. And what it is?
And we've never had pure capitalism.
Well,
we've always had regulated.
Well, the thing is that the less you regulate it, the worse it gets.
Absolutely, it'll kill us all in the end. I mean, it'll chew you up.
Right,
you know?
right. So I actually think about capitalism as we currently talk about, as being combined of two different things. On the one hand, there's markets can be useful tools for setting prices of scarce commodities, and all of those words are important. Okay. Useful tools doesn't mean they're the only tool.
Right.
Number one, especially when it comes to things that, for example, aren't scarce or aren't commodities. And over time, we've decided that there are certain things that aren't commodities. For example, human beings are not commodities. Okay, but we still treat
commodities to be bought and sold. Yeah,
to be bought and sold, but
leverage.
But what we've actually done is we've said, well, as long as they buy and sell themselves, then it's okay.
Oh.
No, because that's what a labor contract is, isn't it? I'm going to sell 8 hours of my life every day, 5 days a week, to you, and I'm going to come in here. You know what? I'm not just going to sell you the 8 hours. In order to be able to sell you the 8 hours, I'm going to take on the responsibility for transporting myself there, for sometimes for having the right kind of equipment, and then for getting myself back home. So I'm going to spend more time than the 8 hours, but you only have to pay me for the 8 hours. And basically what I'm doing is I'm selling myself. I'm selling my life on Earth, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's
the
reason that they called it wage slavery. That's where the term comes from.
Well, okay. I see your point of view as it relates to that. But you still have to consider. Well, you don't have to consider it, but the fact of the matter is that we know that unrestrained capitalism is a beast.
Absolutely.
And so it would, if we were unable to collectively bargain, then we'd all get crushed.
Right. So let me just say, I was saying, so there's two pieces of capitalism that we don't normally separate out. One of them is the markets. Okay. And so we've already acknowledged that there are some things that are not commodities to be bought and sold, and it's not just human beings. There are some other things, and we should consider some other things. For example, right now, a big reason that we have a climate crisis is because there's a lot of people that have an awful lot of money in theory and already on paper and in their stock valuations that's based on carbon that's still in the ground.
Carbon taxes.
Well, I'm not even saying that it's carbon. Carbon tax is one particular policy.
Right.
But they've got an awful lot of their wealth is based on the idea that they're going to be able to extract that carbon from the ground and sell it to somebody to burn into the atmosphere. Okay, and we have. The best science available says we're already on a very bad path, and we've got to do something drastic within 12 years, is what the latest report said, in order to prevent us going down an even worse path. Okay? And the divide here is purely between those who want to hold on to their money and their wealth based on that system of powering our economy through carbon, and people who want to breathe.
Well, but on this one, I'm going to call you Captain Obvious.
Okay.
And the reason why is because that always happens. We went from candles to electricity.
Sure.
Oil lamps to light bulbs.
Right.
We went from horse and buggies to cars, and that struggle of people wanting to hang on to their wealth has always been there.
Sure. That's what led to the Civil War. I'm saying. No, that's right. They wanted to hold on to their slaves.
Really? Okay, we're going to have this?
Huh? No, I'm just saying. They wanted to hold on to their slaves, right?
All right. I thought you were about to say that it was, tell me some crazy states' rights story.
Oh, no. The right the states wanted was to hold on to the slaves.
Exactly. It's like, we're Northerners here now, come on.
Yeah, no. I'm totally with you. The people that make those arguments makes me crazy. It's like, states' rights. What right did they want?
Right.
They wanted the right to own slaves.
Exactly.
Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, it's interesting. Not enough people have these kinds of discussions.
Sure.
Because politics and government and regulation, all that stuff, it impacts everything. Just ask the folks in Flint.
Sure.
We take it for granted here in Ypsilanti that our water supply is safe. We're drinking it right now. This is not fancy bottled water.
No, it's not bottled water, but let me tell you, I run it through a filter,
You do?
Yeah, I have a filtration system because we have problems with the water here. There's a dioxane plume, and that Ann Arbor primarily has been the one fighting to get rid of, and also Washtenaw County. So I can't take it for granted.
Well, you can take a reasonable precaution.
But I can take it a lot more for granted than they can in Flint, for
right,
sure.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But the point is that all of our social infrastructure is under all of these pressures because we built it during a time when we had just come out of this massive conflict where everybody was, at least ostensibly, focused on everybody's good, even though we had terrible things like redlining, and black folks didn't get the same benefits of the GI Bill, and all of those kinds of ways that at the time Dixiecrat Democrats wanted to maintain segregated race relations and oppression of
have you seen the Rock, the Republican Rock in Battle Creek?
Oh no,
you had to Google that.
Okay.
Ironically, the Republican Party was founded.
Yeah, sure.
And they have a rock,
Jackson,
and it says, "On this rock, the Republican Party was established to preserve the Union, to abolish slavery, and something else."
Right.
And so my black Republican friends who hang on to that, wishing and hoping that someday the Republican Party will go back to it. Under Trump, they've given up. They've quit the party.
Okay.
And are just sort of floating out there, not willing to come over to the Democratic Party. Right. And although I would like to get them, I think we could change their mind. It's like hey, now that that your guys over there on the right are full of baloney, why don't you come on in? But it might be hard to have those discussions once like they're sitting here talking to you.
Sure.
They're going to be like way over here, and we're both going to be sitting here going, "The hell are you talking about? We're not doing that."
Right. No,
but I don't mean to dominate the whole conversation or anything like that. Right. But I'm trying to give you a foundation since we're having a conversation
exactly.
about why why I'm running for chair. Why did I get in a race? Why would I even go through this grief of driving all over the place and have these conversations with people, even though we're all Democrats, right?
Right.
So there's sort of like this big common ground that we stand on and have these conversations. And to me, it's really circular. It's not really so much of a square. I know you're a mathematician, right? So it's an area of a circle as opposed to an area of a square where you get to like your corners. It all seems like that we're all along the same sort of spectrum, and at different points in our life, I can see how that can, happen. When we're younger, we want different things. When we're older, we're concerned about different things. And but the basic area of the circle is there. Now the circle can get bigger, and we can have more stuff, and that is hopefully the thing. And so when we're having these discussions, I've talked to Lisa, I've talked to Laura. We say hi, it's pleasant. MD, great guy. I get that perspective from him being an immigrant, and it's not an unpleasant thing, and so I think that we can do more of that. Somehow we've started acting too much like a corporation and less of a community, and we've started having more conversations about value-added things, like to your membership.
Yeah.
What do you get for $10 or $20 or $500? What's the point of that? As opposed to being a community that's got your back.
Yeah.
We're acting like Republicans in my mind, in that sense. And some people they're not going to like that. They like the way that things are, but that's why we're here. We're Democrats. You're not supposed to have everything taken for granted. You're not supposed to be putting your thumb on the scale for somebody else.
Right.
When you're in power, you should, at the top of the Democratic Party, you should be making it fair and trying to bring as many people in as possible. Because the more people that get active, then the more people can get out there and convince other people right,
Right.
to vote. And
Right.
yeah, but go ahead.
No,
I mean, I can go on. I can go on forever about that because people they get scary, man.
Yeah.
They act scared. They act like they're scared of each other.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I appreciate a lot of the stuff that you're saying about what's going on in the community.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you some questions about what you just said about, and particularly about the Democratic Party. So, for example, you just talked about bringing everybody in, making sure everybody has a voice, and all of that. I'm 100% behind all of that. I want more people. I want more people involved. But I also want us to have a clear set of rules that everybody can rely on as actually being the case. So one of the issues that I have that I've brought up a number of times is
and thank you for getting on that rules committee and doing that stuff, man. It's got to be a pain in the butt to deal with it a lot of times. I'm just saying, another meeting to go to.
Yeah. Well, I actually, oddly enough, I've just been that kind of a geek enough that I kind of I kind of enjoy some of it to a certain extent. But sometimes you get to a point when you're talking to somebody who is obviously just holding their position because they don't feel that there's any reason that they should change, even if the point that you're making is logically valid.
Yeah.
So
that's like that identity thing, right?
Right.
Their identity is wrapped up in their position. And so to move a little bit or to give a little bit on that means to surrender a part of their identity or yeah, I get that. That's what people say about Trump. And why folks support him so much. They just can't let go of that.
Right. So let me ask you, here's the thing that happens in the Democratic Party. We have a rule that very, very clearly says that state central committee members have to be elected using a system of proportional voting to ensure proportional representation of groups that are less than the majority or the plurality across the party. Okay.
Speak English. What are you talking about?
Okay. So for example, in my congressional district, we're allowed 15 delegates.
Based on the population?
Yeah, it's based on the population. It's actually
people that voted.
It's based on the number of people that actually this year. It's based on the number of people that voted for the Democratic Party nominee for Secretary of State. So in this case, it's Jocelyn Benson. So the number of votes that we get in every county all across the state are based on how many votes that county produced for Jocelyn Benson back in November. That's the number of votes that we get. That's the number of votes that we get.
That's the number of votes that we get.
That's the number of votes that we get in each county.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it works like the Electoral College, by the way.
Right.
Each county gets a fixed number of votes based on something to do with population. The same way each state in the Electoral College gets a certain number of votes based on something to do with population.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the number of delegates to the state central committee gets allocated on that kind of a basis as well. That's a longer story. It's not that important. But we have here in CD12. It's not Washington County, but CD12, which is part Washtenaw and part of Wayne, not all of either one. We get 15 delegates. There's going to be I can't remember. Every year they do it. They reverse it. It's either seven males and 8 females, or eight males and 7 females when it's not.
And this is to the state central committee.
This is the state central committee.
Yeah.
Okay. And the rules say that we have to elect those by a system of proportional voting. And under the current rules, the only system available is slate voting. And regardless of what that means, what the slate voting is. The idea of proportional voting is that let's say that you have a group that's about, say, 40% of the voters in CD12, for example. You should be able to win about 40% of the seats on the state central committee, even though you don't have a majority, as opposed to using some kind of majority or plurality voting, where every single seat can be won by the majority, okay, and therefore 60% of the people get all of the representation and 40% of the people get none of the representation. So the rules say we have to use proportional voting to elect state central committee members, okay. But then a simple majority of the State Central Committee can add as many members as it wants, as officers at large. Okay?
Thereby throwing that whole formula out of whack.
Exactly. Okay? And so...
Well, that doesn't seem like it makes sense to me.
Right, and so when I've pushed back at that, when I've said, hey, we should do it differently, and by the way, the new rules that we have make it clear that actually you can't do that anymore, but we're going to see whether or not they actually follow the rules or whether they go back to the tradition. I don't know. That's something that I'll be raising. But the pushback that I got was, well, but we need to be able to add those people. So that people who didn't get elected or constituencies that didn't organize and didn't put their folks forward, etc., still get representation. And I'm totally in favor of having folks that were not able to get representation have representation of some kind. On the one hand, I'd really like if they would, organize and let's have a whole bunch of slates at each of these, and maybe each slate only ends up getting one person or two people onto the State Central, and we have, that would be great, okay? But if that's not happening, I still understand, hey, we're trying to build a party where more people feel like they can do that, and we're in a transition stage, and okay, let's figure out some way that we can bring these people in. I have no problem with that. But what I'm saying is that we should do it in a way that preserves the proportionality that we're supposed to have on the State Central Committee.
Yeah.
Okay, and the pushback the pushback that I get is, well, then how do we guarantee that this group gets representation and this group gets representation? And it's like, okay, we can work on that, but we can try to figure out ways to do that. I'm in favor of people getting representation. What I'm not in favor of is people who actually got out there and fought for representation and won it, and then being told, well, you know what, we can just add however many people we want. And by the way, they owe their position to the majority, and so how even if they go in there saying I'm
going to be fair and impartial.
I
owe Joe a favor.
Yeah.
Because Joe hooked me up and got me on the committee.
That's a problem.
And Joe's going to say, don't forget who got you on this committee.
Right.
What is the, were they passing out gold up there or something? I mean, like, what? Well,
so for example...
I'm joking about that,
yeah.
but I want you to understand the seriousness of what I mean when I say that.
Sure.
Which is, sometimes we can be so concerned about power and control that becomes the overriding concern over everything else. So
go ahead.
I mean, I guess there's a question in there
that
you're going to get to, but I keep interrupting.
Right. No problem. So my question is, how do you think we should solve that problem?
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a legitimate question on both sides. Okay. I think that the rules say clearly that you have to have proportional representation. And the idea that you would follow a rule that says you have to have proportionate representation, and then another one that completely undermines that, doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not saying that I have the perfect answer. I have a bunch of ideas I'm perfectly willing to talk with people about, but I think that it's a serious question that needs to be addressed, and it's not just a theoretical question. So, for example, I'll tell you where this comes up. So, the way that you get to be an officer at large is actually the chair has to appoint you, and then any simple majority of State Central has to confirm you. Works just like the Supreme Court does in the Senate.
Right.
Okay, the way that that happen, what happens then is because you're an officer, the rules also say that you're automatically on the executive committee of the State Central Committee.
Right.
And the rules say the executive committee of the State Central Committee is, basically just there to do the stuff that has to be done in between State Central meetings. Okay, so it's a support to the State Central. State Central is the governing body of the Democratic Party. The only higher authority is a convened state convention, which happens for a couple hours a year.
Right. Which is a shame, actually.
Right. I agree, but that's another story.
Right.
So
we'll get to that.
Let me just finish this one. So
hang on, everybody watching.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere.
So here's one of the things that happened over the past 2 years as I've been on State Central is State Central has to approve, by the rules, State Central has to approve the budget for the party.
Right.
Okay. There's also a rule, it's under the new rules, it's 7.3.5, that doesn't even allow the MDP to open a bank account without approval from State Central. And it literally says the treasurer has to put money and all valuables, etc., into bank accounts that have been approved by State Central. Okay.
Yeah. We don't want anybody walking away with the money.
Right. No, that's all fine. So my point is, you take all of that, and then you come to the point where MDP is asking State Central to approve the budget, and we don't actually get to see any serious financials.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done investigating, you've done business reporting. So can you imagine a corporation going to its board meeting? Okay, it's big. It's a big board. Okay, because it's not the shareholders. Shareholders are the actual voters.
Right.
Okay, and the members of the party. The State Central are their representatives there to that's
Right.
in charge of the party, and the chair is there to do the bidding of State Central, not the other way around. Okay, and what we get at State Central is they'll take a single sheet that shows some numbers and where some of those numbers go up on a projector, and they'll pass out like a couple of sheets to like each congressional district that you can sort of pass around and look at for a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, now vote to approve our budget.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? I mean, to me, that's
actually irresponsible.
Exactly.
That's irresponsible.
That's exactly right. I don't understand how I can possibly represent my constituents, because I was elected to State Central. I can't imagine how I could possibly represent my constituents well under that circumstance where I can't see the budget. Okay, and so
what's the explanation that they give?
The explanation that they give is that they don't trust the State Central people not to take pictures of that and put it all over Facebook or whatever, and then the Republicans are going to get a hold of it, and then they're going to make a whole bunch of hay out of it. That's the excuse that they give. But I want to tie this back to the officers at large.
Yeah.
Because when we got a bunch of progressives elected to State Central, and when they asked us to approve the budget, we said we're not going to vote for the budget until we see what's going on. And part of the reason is because the FEC had just fined the party $500,000, and Brandon Dillon had said, well, we paid $100,000 of it already, and we're looking at this thing up there and go, where's the $100,000?
That was paid out.
That was paid out.
Right.
What about the other $400,000?
Right.
Okay. Because on the one hand, Brandon was telling us, we're going to pay this and it's not going to impact our operations. Mm-hmm. And I think about that and I'm like, so I don't care, how you go about it, but if there's $500,000 that we can get our hands on that isn't going into electing candidates, then it's impacting our operations.
That's true.
Okay. And the only thing that I can think of that it's not is, well, maybe just,
somebody stepped up and wrote a check.
Somebody stepped up and wrote a check, and now I want to know what they want for that.
That's a fair question.
Okay, and you know what? Fair enough, maybe they don't want anything, but I don't know that, and I don't know that until I know something about who it came from, and what the discussions were, etc.
And so then what happened next was they shut you down and they just voted. They had enough people to vote.
Well, no, so they did that, but actually what they first said is that fine, you stop us from passing a budget, we'll call an emergency meeting of the executive committee, which has all these officers at large that were picked by us. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they'll pass the budget. Mm-hmm. Okay, so and that's what people at that level of the party were saying, and so it looks to me like there's a serious problem there of. And I'm not, I'm not trying to say that anybody in particular is nefarious. I'm saying that this system is organized in a way that it can very easily be influenced in ways that it oughtn't to be. So
well, you know what?
Well,
let me see. I say this all the time, and that is that we've had weak leadership in the Democratic Party, for a long time, and it shows outside the party when we have issues that we need to confront and face, mm-hmm. and I think it shows inside the party with an inability to have confrontation and to deal with stuff. That to me is an example of having weak leadership and trying to. What's so scary about answering some questions? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, what's so hard about it? And Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. Could you get away with that in a corporation with a board that you report to? No, I don't really think that you could. I think that there would be mechanisms in place that, because it's other people's money, to make sure that you have to answer the questions. And so we have to be adults. Now, for me, that kind of approach or that kind of situation is simply, and I don't see all the things. I'm not so worried about the Republicans seeing, whatever it is they can see. Because whatever financials you see now, they're going to change.
Sure.
As long as we're not giving away the proprietary information as it relates to how we're going to spend the money, we're in this campaign and that campaign, so that we don't impact, our candidates. You're running for governor, and I'm telling them, how much money you got in your war chest and how much we're giving you.
Well, but they have to report a lot of that anyway.
Well, they do, but it'll be after the election. I mean, if we could do things in line with the reporting requirements, and share with the committee, then I don't see why that would be a problem.
And I'm even.
But I think they may have just been shocked that you were there, that you guys, were there, and you were asking questions, as opposed, and they would probably have themselves worked up in their own mind. Here comes these progressives. They're going to be asking us fun questions. They're going to give us a hard time, and so they're coming in, armed for bear. And the first time you ask a reasonable question, they go like, ah.
Well,
Here come the progressives. They're about to blow the building up. They want all these answers. They're going to give it away. We got Republican spies in here. I mean, it's just, come on, grow up, folks.
Yeah. It's when I had the conversation with Lavora as well a few days ago, and when I brought the financial stuff up to her, she said, well, we don't want people arguing about $100 in Xeroxing costs or whatever, and I'm like, nobody I know is interested in that.
I know it's a figure of speech, but I mean, the $100 in Xerox costs, that they're dismissing, is an important point for people who are concerned about that. And even if they do argue about $100 worth of cost, so what? Let them argue about it.
Right. Right, but I agree. If that's what people want to argue, I don't think that's worth arguing about myself, and I don't know anybody that thinks that that's particularly worth arguing about. We're more concerned about the, like I said, the $500,000 and what strings might have come attached to it, and what how we're going about financing our campaigns, and how we're going about how do we pay the FEC fine when it apparently didn't run through our bank account. I mean, that's it. So
that's there are probably time constraints, and people have these fears, and I'm not there. But for me, if a meeting takes all day, it takes all day.
Right.
If we have the meeting and we have to adjourn to come back, to answer some questions, then that's what we do. Now, I think that there's probably a time that you and I and all of us would agree on that. Like, okay, now we're way over. We've answered this.
Right.
We've gone back over it.
Right.
Let's call for the vote or approve the thing or whatever it is that we're going to do. But how long was the meeting set to last?
What the SEC?
Was this one in particular that you're talking about? Was it like it's going to be a day, it's going to be 3 hours, and we want to be in and out, or what were the time pressures?
In the SEC, the SEC meetings usually go I don't know 2 or 3 hours or something like that, depending on how many resolutions there are or what other kinds of stuff is up, but it didn't
I was just trying to understand whether or not it was like a time constraint, like, okay, well, come on guys, we want to be out of here by 4 o'clock. It's like,
well,
2.
We've had some situations like that where we had other stuff that we had more stuff that we wanted to talk about, and people just wanted to get out because they were like, when we went up to when we had it up in Traverse City, they had scheduled a wine tour right after, so everybody wanted to end on time, and I'm like,
go on the wine tour.
And I'm like, we're here for a reason, and it's not the wine tour, at least as far as I was concerned. I mean, I understand, you want to go and do that. And I'm not trying to disparage that. I'm just saying, let's do the business first. But speaking of time and stuff like that, we're a bit past what you had originally said of an hour. Do you mind taking a few more questions?
Let's see. No, I never mind taking a few more questions, but yeah, go ahead. Sure. Okay. Let's go for it.
So I particularly wanted to ask about the lawsuit that you've talked about now, regarding the the rule in the Democratic Party that that says you don't get to vote for 30 days. Actually, it's not just you don't get to vote. You don't get to vote. You don't get to run for office, and you can't hold office for 30 days
And you can't
in
register.
the party after you register. 30 days after you register with the party. If you join the 30 days after you join the party, you get those rights in the party. I've been, in the rules committee, I tried to get it changed to same day, and I made exactly the argument that the Democratic Party argues all the time for same day registration and easier access and all of that, and we're not going to do it in our own party. That seems ridiculous. And I'll tell you I'll tell you the responses that I
Tell me
got.
the response.
Okay.
It's going to
So-
sound like some corporate Republican response, I'm sure.
So the first response is, we're afraid that the Republicans will show up and overwhelm our meetings and take over the party.
Oh, that's what they used to say in the South. They want all them black folks showing up voting.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, right. No, exactly. And my response to them was, number one, if we have a harder time getting people to turn out to our party meetings because they want to be Democrats and working together to move democratic values forward and all of that, if we have so much trouble getting people to show up to our meetings that just organically, Republicans can show up enough people to do that, that's a problem on our side. That's not something that's going to be fixed by a rule. That's something we have to fix by doing something different about how we're organizing. Number one. Number two, if it's not organically, then you're talking about somebody's organizing them. They say, yeah, we think somebody rich is going to pay them a bunch of money and hire a bunch of people to show up and do that. Like, well, if that's the case, they can do it 30 days ahead of time.
Sure.
If they're gonna, there's just, you're not. It's not really solving that's not really solving the problem.
Right.
Okay. Then some folks said, well, it's too hard, because we have to check to make sure that they're a resident, and make sure that they're 16 years or older. I'm like, these tools exist already. That's just ridiculous.
They
These
sound
tools
like
exist
Republicans,
already.
man. That's what they sound like. They sound like Republicans.
Right. So the objections to this, and let me just tell you the final objection. You'll love this one. If we do that, they're not going to donate as much, because for decades, and people have said this to me in this way, the party uses membership as a fundraising tool. And to me, that seems like using membership as a fundraising tool is a way to stay small and only have members of a certain economic class. Okay, you'll get a few from others, from other folks. Okay, but if that's the way that you're going to use membership, I think that you are systematically limiting the people that are going to be part of your party, and in a way that I don't think is compatible with democratic values.
No, it's not compatible with democratic values. And the law changed this last time. We all pushed for it. We voted for it.
Absolutely.
Although the Prop 3 folks basically worked on their own.
Yeah.
So they won in spite of the Democratic Party pushing a democratic value, the things that we wanted.
Right.
Now I think we should start with that. That
Sure.
we were not all that helpful to Prop 3 or marijuana, for that matter.
Or Prop 2. And actually,
or Prop 2.
Let me say, by the way, that leading up to the election, I had on more than one occasion, I spoke up at a meeting against Debbie Dingell's position. Debbie's our congresswoman here. I have a good relationship with Debbie.
I love Debbie. We were
she's
on Fox 2 just the other day.
Okay.
A separate side talking about her blowing her car thing or whatever.
Right. The cafe standards.
Right. No. The blood alcohol.
Oh.
That tragedy that happened with the family of 5 died, and then now Debbie's introduced. You should get her on to talk about that. She's on fire about that. Equipping cars with breathalyzers.
Right.
Or the technology to
Sure.
tell whether or not somebody's
Right.
You want to see people go bananas.
Yeah.
You know how hard it was to get people to put on a seatbelt?
Yeah.
They'd be like, they're taking your DNA and selling it overseas and all this. Boy, that's gonna be a hard. I told her it's gonna be,
Yeah.
but go ahead and tell the last one. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So she was saying that we should not, as Democrats, come out in support of Prop 2 because the Republicans will then say that it's just a Democratic power grab, and to which my answer was, they're going to say that no matter what. No matter what we say, for example, like Ocasio-Cortez is talking about, 70% top marginal tax rate on income over $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and all of those words matter, just like all of them mattered about, markets.
Mm-hmm.
And what are they doing on Fox News? They're talking about the Democrats want to take 70% of your paycheck. They're lying about it. They're going to lie about it. Doesn't matter what position you take. Doesn't matter how you say it. They're just going to lie about it because they don't have anything else.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, any Republicans think that they have something else, you're welcome to come on the program. I'd love to have a talk with you.
Just bring it in.
Okay, bring it on. So Debbie's position of, well, we need to not say that we're Democrat, and I think that what we need actually is a lot of people with full-throated talking about the positions that we actually believe in, and with a little bit of nuance. And here's what I'd say, like for example, on universal single payer, do I know how we're going to implement that? Mm-hmm. No. But I still want every single candidate that I support to be out there full-throatedly going, this is the direction we're going. Mm-hmm. And we'll figure out how to go there, okay? And maybe we don't get all of it right now. Maybe we get a little bit, and maybe we get a little bit. But here's the thing. Number one, we know that it works because we've got tons of real-world examples where it works, okay? Number one. Number two, just because we don't know how to do something right now isn't a reason why we shouldn't aim for it, okay? I mean, think about, John F. Kennedy and the moon, exactly. Yeah. No. Or what
you didn't have to go that far. Just think about CDs.
Sure.
And memory chips.
Right.
We now can store vast amount of data on a little bitty zip drive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's the hypocrisy of my party is really just too much to bear in relationship to the idea that we promoted same-day voter registration, where you could vote, and no reason absentee ballot voting outside to get people to vote. But we don't want to do that inside of our house, where decisions are made in our leadership, and let's not forget creating policy positions that folks are going to follow, that we're going to require elected officials to adhere to, right? And so this is where the important decisions are made, but we don't want all these folks to be a part of it in the same easy kind of way. That's just hypocritical, and they know it. And so when I had Herb Sanders draft up the letter and send it to Brandon Dillon, I knew what the reaction was going to be. They were going to go bananas, and they were going to do one of two things. Either they were going to say, let's talk about it, or they were going to say, nothing. And so far, we're at the nothing stage. Now, my understanding is there's probably going to be a rules committee meeting at some point, maybe by the time this airs. And maybe it could all be fixed. But even let's say it is fixed. I doubt that they have the will to do it. But let's say that it is fixed. Then the point will have been made, which is part of a larger point that this is one example of how, intentionally or not, we are keeping people out. And if we're doing that, in the intimate settings where we're trying to work and get things done, then what kind of impact are we having around the state?
Sure.
This thing manifests all over. Man, everywhere I've been, people have said the same thing. They feel disconnected. Why won't the state help us? The Vaunted One campaign that people were talking about, everybody knows that's a red herring.
Well, for example,
as far as the bottom line is simply the same kind of bottom line that we would make when anybody was being shut out of an equal opportunity. Now, if you're a voter, you're a Democratic voter and a party member, and you can't vote at the convention, well, I'm no lawyer, but it seems to me that is unfair treatment.
I agree.
Applying a rule differently for people, for no other reason, for no discernible reason other than, what, I'm inconvenienced. Now, in terms of people running for office and stuff like that, I think it makes sense to keep, our rules in line with the state. There should be a time when you sign up and you say you're going to run, you go through a process, so that people can see who the heck is running. And just, but you shouldn't. I think that violates the Equal Protection Clause. But I'm not a lawyer. What do I know? And they got a bunch of smart lawyers over there saying that it doesn't, and they're not worried about it. But they should be worried about it.
Well, I think so.
Oh, and this last thing.
Go ahead.
Because you didn't mention it, and you're on the Rules Committee.
Sure.
But there should be a way for people to vote. Yeah, somebody lives in the UP, or somebody lives in Muskegon, or wherever it is, and they can't afford to get here. That why shouldn't they be able to participate? Or they have a disability that prevents them from traveling, or for God's sakes, they're in the hospital,
right?
And they want to vote for you for chair.
Sure.
So
actually, that is another point that we fought for. The progressives on the Rules Committee fought for, and basically the way that it got pushed back is the folks on the Rules Committee said we don't want to add that as a part of the rules right now because we don't know how much it's going to cost, and we need to find that out before we bind the party to do that. Yeah. So what was supposed to happen is the party was supposed to be to put together a committee to find out that information, and then it was supposed to come back. And I don't know where that process is at this particular point.
Maybe they revived it now that we've raised the issue.
Yeah.
Maybe if you guys have a meeting or the next communication you have, there'll be.
Well, so we're certainly be pushing it again. I mean,
I mean, if I'm the chair, I'm going to push that until we get it done.
Absolutely. I think we need to. We need to have that done. It's ridiculous that. I mean, look. Consider the weather. It could just be. It could be a matter of the weather that you can't get from the Upper Peninsula down to Detroit, and the convention. Guess what? It's always in Detroit. Okay, and that's where most of the people are.
95% of the people in Detroit vote Democratic, and 99% of them can't get to the convention now.
Right.
They're locked out of the convention.
Right, because they can't vote. Right.
Right, and the party did not do enough job communicating that.
Right.
I mean, communicating the convention was going to be there to everybody. There was no big campaign saying, "Come on down and get out and vote."
Right.
And they staggered this thing out. The earliest that I could find it seemed to be in early December, when Brandon Dillon said he was stepping down. So he said he was stepping down. Then it seems like they announced that the convention was going to be February 2nd, and this 30-day thing. But the thing is, man, you're announcing that in December. That's the holiday season.
Yeah.
People Thanksgiving is already happening. People are shopping. They're getting ready. They're doing stuff. And that seems like the worst time.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that there's no reason that it has to be so late, because there are rules that give very clear guidance that there's only a certain range during which you're going to be able to do this. So you can know a decade in advance.
Have it all planned, right? Have them all planned out, and the internet is a monster. You can just put the dates out there.
Right. And the thing is that it's I understand that you need to book a venue, and you don't really know where it's going to be until you book a venue. Okay, and you might have to change the date 6 months in advance because the venue doesn't have that date or something like that. But I still think that there's no reason that you couldn't book a venue 4 months in advance or something like that, and make sure that everybody knows. For example, in the rules, the county and the district parties have to have their conventions within a certain number of days after the November election. They know about when it's going to be. But here's another thing. This is one of the big changes that we pushed through on the Rules Committee, is that right now the rules adopted this past March, okay, so in effect now, and have been in effect by the February convention, will have been in effect almost a full year, okay? The rules say that if a rule isn't posted publicly on the MDP website, it's not valid. The only rules currently posted as of I didn't check it today, but like 2 days ago I went back and looked again. Okay, the only rules posted are the state party rules. So as far as I can tell right now, under party rules, there is no other unit other than the state party that can even run an election February 2nd. Because because they don't have their rules
Right.
Posted, so we have no idea how they're going to run the election. There's another set of rules that say that in order to run an election, the party has to inform all interested persons, and they have to publish and publicize the information about how they're going to run the elections, the rules for running the elections, the procedures, the date, time, all of that kind of stuff, and they have to do it in time for current and prospective members to be able to participate fully. Okay, those are
That's the way it's laid out.
that's the way that it's laid out. So here's the thing: I haven't seen that from anybody that's planning on running an election on February 2nd. Now, and I'm not trying to cause a big problem.
Right,
I don't want to tell everybody, hey,
Well, they
you
probably
showed
don't
up
know.
great, and well, but so why don't they know?
Because the party didn't train them.
Party, so
Lansing didn't train them.
Right.
Lansing didn't make sure that they knew. They said, we're putting out our stuff on this date, and you guys need to follow suit. And here are the rules that we're using. Get together with your members or your committee or whatever,
Right.
and see if you're going to do it this way or another
Right.
way.
Right.
And you have until this date to do it.
Right.
And you know why they didn't do that? Because they were worried about how this transition was going to happen. Now, I think Lavora and Brenda are wonderful people, and but my understanding with conversations with people that I've had calling around State Central Committee or folks like that, and they would say, "Well, Greg, you're just now calling me, man. I got a call way back in September. I got a call way back in October, about Lavora running, for example, and you're just now calling me." I said, "What are you talking about? This is December, 17th, 18th, whatever it is. I just saw it in the paper on the 15th." And I said, "Well, clearly, they've been working this thing." So if you're more concerned, if someone is more concerned, and I'm not saying Lavora and Brandon did this, but I'm saying if when people are more concerned about their next move than they are about their responsibilities for the moment, it's easy to get sidetracked.
Sure.
And so in 2016, we heard this big thing about how the Hillary people, put the pressure on Michigan and wouldn't listen to us about she was going to lose.
Debbie was one of the loudest voices about that.
Oh, she was definitely a loud voice about it. But if the party leadership didn't have the balls to get through and say, you know what, we're not doing that. Keep your money or whatever. We're going to do what we need to do for Hillary to win here. And if you can't get her here, then shame on you. But those same people are still in charge. Now, the two things that brought people out to vote this time were weed and being mad at Trump. Weed.
Well,
the weed issue was gone.
Well, but there were also those propositions.
And the proposition, the gerrymandering was huge.
Actually, so Prop 3 that with the voting reform stuff, that actually outperformed everything else that got a vote in the state, and outperformed the best performing Republican by almost 1 million votes, 800 and some thousand votes.
But that's because we were getting Republicans too.
Right.
I mean, nobody was showing up just to vote for that.
Right. Well,
that they were showing up just to vote for weed.
They were showing up there were people showing up just to vote for weed, but there were some people that were specifically showing up to vote for better election procedures, for better.
Like they voted for that and they left.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Like some people voted for weed, they were out.
No, that's true. But my point is that a lot of people, this isn't enough to get them out, and this is enough to get them out, and this is enough. But I'm saying that for a lot of people, that was a tipping point. And we're actually going to be able to get people an easier way of being able to vote. We're going to make voting easier, and that should be easier because it should be actually, in my opinion, if you believe that all governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, then the government should show up at my door, put a ballot in my hand. Okay.
So we're not leaving until you vote.
Well, you're not leaving until you vote, or until you tell us that you don't want it. Okay. And there should be a record of that so that I can check and make sure that my vote actually got counted the way that I cast it.
Sounds fairly intrusive, though.
Well, I mean, you could opt out of it. That's fine. You know.
I mean, then why don't you make sure your license is renewed?
Well, because the license renewal isn't about the government having legitimacy.
No, that's true.
License
That's
renewal is about me having as
that's a good point.
Okay,
I'll give you that. That was a bad example, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Right. And I acknowledge that may be a little bit.
I mean, I shouldn't
show up at the door.
Right. I shouldn't take what you said at face value.
Yeah.
I'm joking with you.
Yeah.
I know you don't really mean like
yeah.
You want a cop showing up at your door.
Right.
No,
I certainly don't want a cop. That's not No, but I think that if the government wants my consent, they should actually ask it of me.
Well, we are the government. Well, we are the government.
Well, but we have a system where we have a system that actually systematically does not ask for consent and assumes that if you don't that if you don't jump through all of these hoops, assumes that you've given your consent. Because I mean, think about it. If you don't go through all of the different hoops that the government puts in front of you in order to get to the point where you actually get a ballot in your hand, you go in the voting booth and you vote. There's a bunch of hoops you have to jump through. If you don't jump through some of those, the government doesn't count that against their legitimacy. Even though.
Well, you know what? Okay, taking your discussion, and
sure,
what you
yeah,
said,
sure.
To a little further. Since the government doesn't ask your consent, there's no box on there that says dissolve.
No.
There's no box that says, I don't agree with any of this. I think we should dissolve the government and start over.
Right. No. That's true.
Like
but my point is that if you don't have the option to consent, you really don't have the option to give your consent. Your consent is basically taken.
I'm not a lawyer, but it seems to me like that, by virtue of our birth, and by just simply being here, we give consent.
So I understand.
That was before the Republican and the neocons got a hold to the idea of, during the Cold War, if you set your foot on U.S. soil, you were in the land of the free and the home of the brave, and certain rights and privileges were extended to you, escaping from the wall and the commies.
Right.
But
now they want to build the wall.
Now they want to build a wall, and then I don't. Maybe they'll try and throw us over it if they get the chance. Get that guy, throw him over the wall. No, don't put him through the door. Throw him over the wall to Canada.
Yeah.
Where he was born. Not that that's ironic that the longest border is along Canada, where we've caught more terrorists. But we're not worried about that.
Well. No,
we're not even worried about Mexico. It's just
right now. What it is that Trump's a bully, and he doesn't like being beaten because if you're a bully and you get beaten, other bullies beat up on you. Okay,
and then then there's the skinny kid beating up on you.
That's right. So the
only way to be the bully is to gang up on him.
That's the way that Trump thinks. I'm saying this is the way that Trump thinks, and so it's not about the wall. It's about a monument to his power, and that power is fueled by, in very large part, racism and hate of and xenophobia, and so
we gotta stop being scared of each other, man.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing I found in the Democratic Party, here, and maybe it was the triangulation thing or whatever, but somehow we've gotten too scared of each other. Why are you afraid of the progressives? What I really don't understand. Yeah. When the election was going on, and this is, I'd get a text from Indivisible, saying we're organizing over here and we're doing this, and they would be like out in Macomb or some other red area,
right? And
I'd go, man, I want to go do that, but I can't because I got to go do this other thing,
Right.
But I would be inspired by what they were doing. I was like, fuck. I was like, yeah,
sure.
They are out there doing that. So I might make a phone call, or I might, go do something else, so I can be in kinship with them and what they were doing. And so, as opposed to, but then I would go to some of these clubs, and they would say, oh, the Indivisible people, watch out for them because they're not really with us. They're out here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're out there doing what we're doing, but they're so far out there in terms of geography.
Right.
We're worried about what we're doing here that we can't really get over there, but we should be helping them and we should be bringing them in. And what can we give them? Can we give them some money? Can we give them some sandwiches?
Right.
What can we do?
Right.
But there were people that were like afraid of that, and then so you had that thing going on, and then you had the grassroots folks, doing their thing, and there's like this resentment, man, that seems to happen, and it's like, again, people working on behalf of the party are not taking anything away from you. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna lose a gold star or a cookie. Yeah. Because Indivisible got out there and knocked more doors.
Right. So I want to talk about.
I want to encourage that.
Right.
I want to encourage that. I like for the spontaneity of people jumping up and doing stuff. It's better to rein people in than to sort of like just cut them off altogether. And the kind of thank you that we've given to groups like Indivisible and Grassroots and Michigan Revolution and stuff like that is pitiful. It really is. And we just need to, thank you for all the stuff that you've done. You've been researching this stuff and doing this stuff, man. You could be doing other stuff. You're a mathematician.
Well, this is...
You probably play the stocks pretty good too, huh?
No, I don't gamble. And the stock market is just a casino. Our economy is set up as a casino.
Right.
There are some people with no skin in the game. That's one of the reasons that's one of the reasons they want to keep it a casino instead of actually having a serious economic system that cares about people instead of cares about how much money they make.
Right. You got to help me kick the doors in, man.
Yeah.
It would be fun. I'm telling you. We have that meeting again. The next time you would have that meeting and I'm there, we'd be hanging out and I'd say, okay, you know what? We're just gonna sit here until we get the answer. Well, so nobody's going on that wine trip.
Or they can go, but
Oh yeah, you can go.
We're gonna finish
you
the
can
work.
go. That would be
the work.
In fact, that might work out even better because then
Well, we'd be
a bunch of proxies.
Yeah, then we
get
a quorum. Yeah.
Well, we get proxy until we get a quorum.
Until we get a quorum.
We just go out in the hallway and get the staff. Like, hey, what are you doing? You want to serve? You want to serve? You want to serve? Come on.
Yeah, the proxy and alternate is another thing we got to talk about at some point. But I want to I want to go back to something you just said about people that are upset about.
To the chair. How long are we gonna do this?
As long as you're willing to.
10 minutes, man.
10 more
minutes. 10 minutes.
So here's the. One of the things you just said is about how people are afraid of other groups and
I think we as liberals and progressives shouldn't be afraid of labor either.
No, we're not. The fact of the matter is there was this rumor spread that somehow we're anti-labor, and I'm like, where? Show me what policy that we advocate that's anti-labor. The only reason, as far as I can tell. And I've had good conversations. I've had good conversations with Ron Bieber, who's
I've been marching with that guy for 15 years.
I've had good conversations with Mike Stone. I've had good conversations with people from the MEA. I don't. The thing that I think happens there. I could be wrong about this. It's just.
We're just guessing. We're just making up stories, Ron. Don't get mad.
is that I have the impression that the unions have had a tremendous amount of influence over the party for a long time. And when a bunch of progressives showed up and said, hey, we want a seat at the table, that was a challenge that they hadn't experienced in a long time. And I can understand having a reaction to that. Okay? But the fact of the matter is that what we're saying is that there are more people involved in this project called democracy, and we want unions to be at the forefront. We want working people to be at the forefront.
Right.
But and a lot of us are working people. There are plenty of working people.
Anybody rich down here is a little fun. You might be.
What's that?
You might be rich and just
no.
playing it out. But those rich eccentric dudes,
believe me, if I had the money, there's a lot of stuff that I would be doing to do a lot more than what I'm doing now.
A bigger scale, you'd scale it all up. This would be an international network of politics, and then you'd be accused of influencing elections.
Yeah, well.
Instead of bringing democracy and stability
See, actually, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get more people in different local areas to do this kind of stuff with their local politics, and I'm trying to build the backbone so I can put that up there. Can I help with that? What's that? Sure.
I'm not trying to just curry favor with you, but
No.
I think that because I do I do stuff with different school districts, and Grosse Pointe. I was telling people about just the other day at the ceremony. And they said, "What was the biggest contribution you think you made with the Grosse Pointe NAACP?" And I said, "Well, just doing it, setting it up.
Sure.
Because after we set it up, then." A women's group formed, and they had a women's march, and then we had a gay rights march, and then there was, you take a step forward,
Sure.
and then somebody else gets some courage, and then they take a step forward, and then somebody else takes a step forward. Right. So, like the way I got inspired about Indivisible, there are going to be more groups that are going to pop up, after what they have done, not less. And so, with this kind of thing, where you're like, somebody's watching this right now and saying, well, I can do that. He did that. I can do that. So there has to be a way that we can get that around by partnering with with some school districts. And I told them that now in Grosse Pointe, when I first got there, like 10, 11 years ago, there were no black principals in the schools, not one. No women in the high school, no people of color. As principal. And now They had the first black principal. That was such a big thing. It made Channel 4 News.
This is just now.
This is just now, right? This 21st century, not
right.
not the 20th century.
Right.
And so those kinds of things have happened. I've seen a black police officer. I've seen more women police officers. I've seen. It's just one little ripple. And you give somebody else some courage. And I would really like to do that with the party. I mean, because of what you've been doing, the guys and the progressives have done, and the rule changes that you've done, I think has allowed us to be able to step up and run. And I think it's given us more freedom to be able to do it, as opposed to what it was in the past with a slave. Some of these, what do you call them? Those you go interviews to get support, and
like from some of the different groups that do endorsements and stuff.
Right. And so the people that I helped, like the American Federation of Musicians, they were on strike with the DSO. I came in there telling them I was running. They said, you know where you're sitting? I said, yeah, I'm sitting in the same chair I was sitting at when we were doing the strike thing. They said, no, man, you're sitting in the same seat where Senator Levin sat and asked for our endorsement. You're sitting in the same seat where Mike Duggan sat and asked for our endorsement, and we gave it to him. And they were like, we are absolutely going to endorse you, the president of the nurses union up in Flint, same thing, it's like, of course. But that's because I'm the person that little unions in particular would turn to when there's a situation with the establishment. And other people don't want to help because they've got these relationships. Oh, I know this guy. I'm making money with this company, and I just don't have that. I'm just free like that. And if I did have it, I would just say, well, I'm sorry, Joe, but if you treated these people right, I wouldn't be here. So, the folks that we've been challenging in relationship to this rule change, I'm not somebody that just came out of the blue. I know all those people. Debbie Dingle. I mean, she's not
involved in that.
Yeah, she's not involved in that. I don't mean to say that, but I'm a known quantity to what's going on.
Sure.
And I know how to take the fight. Now, we haven't filed a lawsuit. There are lots of things that we can do leading up to that, so that if we do need to do it, we can say, well, look, first you deliver the letter. Then we had a protest, and then we went to this office, and then we went to their houses, and then we went and started putting that pressure, on, because the hypocrisy is just ridiculous.
Right. And let me say that under the rules, I've been thinking about how they could actually comply with what you're asking them to do.
Like if they had the will.
Right. If they decided to, could they actually do it? And they could. It'd just be difficult. One of
we're back to the.
Yeah.
I don't want to explain the $100 copier expense.
Exactly.
Let's talk about how they do it. Tell me how they can do it.
Well, so at this point, it's probably not possible to get a state central committee meeting together.
But I thought there's a group that's in between.
Right. So there's the executive board that technically I would So here's the thing: if they had the executive board do it, I would be hard pressed to not object to that, because the executive board isn't supposed to be doing that kind of thing. You need a 2/3 majority of the state central to change the rules, and I wouldn't want to set that precedent. But what you could do is you could call an emergency meeting of the state central committee, and you could try to get a quorum, and you could probably do that. But the other thing that you could do is you could bring it, you can bring it before the state convention. You can bring it. You can propose it as a resolution from the floor of the convention, and have everybody at the convention vote on it. I think technically they might have to suspend the rules in order to vote on a rules change. But we could look. I'd have to look that up in Robert's rules. But the state convention could do it.
But you'd have to do that in the morning.
You'd have to do that in the morning. Yeah.
And so then you'd have to disrupt the whole caucus thing. And you know what? So, but you know why? My position is this, and you're probably. I mean, I understand that you're a rules guy. I'm a rules guy too.
Sure.
But I think the rules. I think that we make the rules.
I agree. Absolutely. That's absolutely.
Yeah. So if you gotta flip everything around and make the caucuses tomorrow.
Yeah.
Then flip it around and make them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or later on that night, or
Sure.
whatever it is, push everything back. But just like laws, laws get changed.
Right. No, I completely agree. I think that the fact of the matter is that the state party rules are explicitly based. I mean, a lot of the times when you talk about the preamble to a document, it doesn't actually have any force.
Yeah.
But but the preamble to our rules actually explicitly says that these rules are adopted based on two principles.
Okay.
Okay. One is I'm going to try to get the exact language, but one is called the principle of people, which is defined as giving service to the needs and aspirations of all people, and the principle of democracy, which says working for equal opportunity, access, and full participation of all elements of society in all aspects of politics and government. Okay, so those are the things on which the rules are supposed to be based, and there are some rules that, to me, just blatantly contradict that, and
Right.
I think one of them is this 30-day rule about you're denied voting rights for your first 30 days as a member of the party.
I just think that you know what? I think that so the first 30 days that you're a member of a party. So they said that January 3rd was the last day that you could register to vote in the election.
Yeah.
And then I guess because there was a holiday in there, the first was New Year's Day.
No, it's because there's 31 days.
In the month.
In January.
Yeah. And so, you know what? It's just a stupid rule. We have same day voter registration. We should have the same thing here. So I didn't even want to get in the weeds of trying to explain it or anything like that. And they just need to change that. And I'm telling you, you have way more examples than I do. But I'm asking folks to help me kick in the door, open the door. Maybe kick is too hard. Open the door and make more room in the Democratic Party for people. What if somebody just, they just heard about the convention and they're like, I'm a Democrat. I want to
Sure.
participate. And, and maybe it's just dumb to have it all in one day. Maybe we should spread things out and have caucuses throughout the day that people want to go to and they want to hang out. So I like to go to the Progressive Caucus.
Sure.
I also like to go to the Faith Caucus.
Sure.
If it's happening at the same time, I'm screwed.
Right. No, and there's there are some serious issues like that. Like, for example, there's a lot of progressive folks that want to be involved in the environmental caucus,
Right.
or some of the other caucuses that are happening at the same time.
Right.
And that makes it a big problem. So actually, that's something that some of the progressive folks are talking about.
We need to
reorganize
bust it out, man.
that?
We need to bust it. I remember it used to be 2 days, and the first day, nobody would come. I mean, that's an exaggeration. The people that wanted to come would come, but all the excitement was happening the next day. So you fix that, right? You have excitement happening on Saturday, and you have excitement happening on Sunday.
Sure.
Right. And you have other things going on, like maybe a concert, and maybe some training, and maybe some gaming, and maybe fun stuff, community building stuff that happens.
Community building stuff that's really important.
That's where I really am with that. I love
Yeah.
I think we can stop nickel and diamond people, or because people, I've been there. Maybe this was in Grand Rapids. This woman said, one year I paid $10, and the next year I paid $500, and there was like no difference in between, in between the two.
Yeah.
Now, maybe she just had a good year, and next year she'll just give $1,000. But the expectation that you'll get something good out of this, I think, is something that we set up with this tiered stuff.
Yep.
I say this is what alumni associations. I'm a Wayne State grad. My alumni association doesn't charge anything, and they're raking in money hand over fist because we're happy to give to go to the football game or to go on this trip or to
Right, and I'll tell you. Let me tell you about that. So I ran the Dana campaign leading up to the April convention.
Yeah.
And
so you're like the campaign manager?
I was the campaign manager leading up to that, and when I came on, we didn't have a process for getting people signed up for the convention. We didn't have a process for doing it. We didn't have it was a long story, but anyway.
Right.
So I put together a team to do that, and between what we did as a team on the Dana campaign and what we pushed lots of other progressive groups across the state, small and large, to do while we were doing that, to sign people up. We signed up altogether, progressives all across the state, over 3,300 new members to the party who had never been members before.
Wait, you just signed them up in white places?
What's that?
You only signed up white folks?
No, we had the main place that we signed people up was online. We had different places you could go online to sign up, and then we would print the forms and take them in. We signed up. There were people that got signed up all the way, from the Upper Peninsula all the way down into Detroit, and we got screamed at by top leadership in the party because it cost them $33,000 in membership cards.
What? Well, I guess it's obvious then. Why have the stupid membership card?
Exactly. Which is what we had just been ordering. What I just
hello, put the little barcode thingy on your phone.
Exactly.
But you know what? There's probably who's the company that makes them?
I have no idea. They don't have a union bug, by the way. No,
oh, you're on a different committee.
No, I'm on the rules committee. I'm on the state central, and I don't know who makes them. That's, to be perfectly honest, that's not necessarily something that I would necessarily investigate. I'd like to see the union bug,
Oh well, yeah, you always want to see the union bug.
But
and how they got away with. But I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that. When I was in Grand Rapids and I talked about this, and I said, "Is there a question in there?"
Yeah,
well, no, can we stay on that for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
And then I'll let you finish your Dana question because I know what you want to get to. So, I got one of those cards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So here we go.
It's almost useless, isn't it?
Oh man, this is my what is this? My Kroger card, my CVS card. This was to my gym, and here is the wonderful Michigan Dems card.
Right, that's already.
It's the newest thing on here. Look, folks.
Yeah.
It's all wore out. This is the newest thing on here.
Right.
And you can see my little barcode barely number on the back there, right?
Yeah. So
this is like a horrible value for the dollar.
Right.
But the reason why we're doing this is because we're mimicking the corporations.
Right.
That's right. This is just another corporate card that I got on my key ring, which is more useless than the other cards because at least I have more places where I can use it.
Right.
But we have that corporate mindset. This is one of the things that you get for the value of your membership. This is the value added thing. And so because we're thinking like retail executives as opposed to community builders and community organizers, we get this kind of stuff and you get people shouting at you for signing people up.
Right.
And
let me say something about that card, by the way. It would be if we're gonna spend any money on that, and I don't think that we should. I think that my recommendation. This is what I recommended in the rules committee that I couldn't get past there. Was that you should get your membership number electronically by email because that costs basically no dollars.
Right.
No cents even.
Since it could just be generated.
Costs electrons. Costs a few electrons.
Right.
Okay. And then if you wanted a membership card.
You can pay for it.
You can pay for it. You could pay $15 if it costs us $10. If you have the cash that you want a card and that's important to you, great, wonderful, love it. let's actually bring some money into the party instead of costing the party money in that way. And by the way, by the way, they yelled at us about those free memberships, those 3,300 memberships
Even though the rules say.
Even though the rules say, that there's no financial contribution required to join or to remain a member.
Right.
Right.
Oh, look. Here's my Stubbs card to get into the movies, folks.
There you go.
It's cardboard. I can just use this.
Yeah.
Well, got my little number in the back of there.
You know what's funny about that is actually prior to the plastic cards that you were just showing off.
Yeah.
When I first joined, I joined in December.
I wonder if I got an old one.
December 2016. It used to be a cardboard card.
Right.
And you know what? That one cost $11. We actually made it. It's actually $1 cheaper to have the. That's what we were told in the rules committee. as amazing as it is, but here's the thing: is that we have complaints from folks in congressional districts and counties across the state who need to be able to check people in.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's easy enough to have a barcode, but the problem is that they don't have access to the database at the MDP, so they can see your name and your number, but they don't know when you joined.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know if you're eligible to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially useless to anybody except the state party, because they have the database so that when you show up at the convention, they'll actually check to see what date you were registered. Whereas instead of making it so that it had the date on there or encoded in the barcode or have access to the database to all of the other units of the party that need access to that information.
Yeah.
So
well, you know what I mean. Just these kinds. Come on, man. These kind of things are so like common sense. And I'm not trying to suggest something, but the plastic card with the barcodes came out of somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's a contract with the company somewhere.
Yep.
And somebody decided, or some committee somewhere decided that this is going to be a fair price. Mm-hmm. And are we locked into this thing forever? Is it year to year? Do we order? I mean, you don't even know the answer to those questions, even though you asked.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to those questions. I do know that when I tried to get them to get rid of the card because of all of these problems, the pushback from the people on the rules committee was, well, but our older members expect to get a card. I'm entirely in favor of our older members being happy, but I don't think that we need to spend, for example, if you think about it, if you want the party to be a big party, how big do you think the party should be?
1 million people.
1 million people? Okay, so that's $10 million in membership cards. If you want because right now we're at 15,000, so I'm rounding, but at that point it's round, it's a reasonable round.
So why can't we just use the technology that's available to us? I mean, I understand wanting to meet in person.
Sure. But
people meet online all the time. I'm not saying everybody but if let's say we did have 1 million people, well then to me it seems like it would make sense. But why not broadcast? Like at church. You go to church. You want to go to church. You can't make it. You go to the feed, and you're like, you're watching the sermon.
Sure. No, I think the best way to do it. I mean, I don't know for sure. I haven't investigated. Right.
But you have an idea.
I have an idea. So my idea is that we want a strong party in every county. So what we should try to do is we should try to get as many counties as possible to have a county meeting for the state convention in their county, so it's close.
Right.
Okay, to everybody that lives in the county. Whoever wants from that county to come down to wherever the state convention is, and we should move it around so it's not so far for everybody. But anybody in that county, they can see what's going on. They should be able to vote. All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that would totally make sense.
Remotely. And if there are some counties that they don't have quite enough people, okay, so you get some of them together that are in the same area, and maybe you do this section of the congressional district or something like that, so that more people can participate. Not only that, but more people locally can get together and meet the other local members of the party, because a lot of people right now don't even go to their county stuff because it's
You know what I think it is? I think it's the political. So if you're a senator, right, or you're a statewide office, you know, you have the convenience of having all the folks from around the state in one place where you can like touch them. But I think that it's time we look at things and break it up. We need to make the conventions fun. I do agree with localizing, you know, the county conventions. Like I agree that I was in Ingham County at the Ingham County Forum.
Sure.
And the guy that's the president of the Ingham County Dems, he the first question he asked, he said, "What is it that you could do, either one of you, if you're elected chair, to make Ingham County more connected to the state party?"
Sure.
And I was like, you know, other people, they gave their answers and stuff like that, but I was sitting there like, what the hell do you mean, feel more connected? This is the county where the headquarters is. Right. Are you telling me that you don't feel connected?
Right.
And the headquarters is literally
right.
a mile from here.
Right, right. And by the way, the rules say that the headquarters building is open to reasonable use by other units of the party and other party members.
But they don't know. I said if it's me, I'm gonna like fling open the doors and say, you know, to the extent that you need to use an office here, have it here. Have your phone number here. You know, base yourself here. And if we're able to, I mean, we will be working on things together. First, we're going to have that synergy because you're going to be there, and then anybody else that needs to come can come and be there.
Right.
But my thing is like, if we start doing the work now, you know, with counties, helping them with issues that they're facing. There might be some Democratic commissioner, there may be something that we really want to get passed. You know, well then I'm going to work together with you and we're going to get 5 people, 10 people, whatever we can get to get down there, organize around this issue and get this thing passed. So that when elections come around, you won't have to, you know, meet Joe or Greg, you know, the new guy trying to help you organize, because you will already have that team in place.
Right.
But I mean, that was the most obvious example, and I'm, with the exception of one place, you know, there was everything I've gone to. It's the same questions. Nobody's answering the phone. You know, we don't feel connected. They talk about the one campaign and how, like, you know, the one campaign, you know, swooped in, borrowed their volunteers, had them call for the governor, you know, the attorney general, and the secretary of state. Maybe Sam would get it, you know, get mentioned in there. But by the time they got down to the state rep, the state senator, it was, you know, not enough time.
Right.
You know, we should have flipped that and started with the local people saying, you know, hey, okay, we want you to vote for this local guy. And by the way, this local person endorses the governor, who is awesome. You know, but we did it just the opposite. And I've been around a lot of these coordinated campaigns, and you know, there's always some push-pull, you know, about that kind of thing. But I've never had a somebody who won their race in a competitive district against Republicans who was pissed off at the party saying, "I won in spite of them." You know, and I hear that all over the place. Now, it's not, well, I mean, you know, Brandon couldn't be everywhere at the same time, and Laura couldn't be everywhere at the same time, but it's a pattern, man.
Well, the thing is that if you're running an organization, you shouldn't have to be everywhere at the same time. You should be running an organization in a way that there are people there that are dealing with that. Right. And
they know the criticism. They've heard it. I can't even believe they started out with that narrative. You know, the whole, like, it's a wonderful thing.
Did you see at the last State Central Committee meeting, they passed out a one-page sheet about how wonderful the one campaign was. And right at the top in the left-hand side in big letters where you start reading, it's, I don't remember the exact number, was 6,700 volunteers, 6,753 or 72 or something, 6,700 volunteers. And I'm thinking, 6,700 volunteers, about 15,000 members of the party. So what you're telling me is you didn't even get half of the party to volunteer for the one campaign. Now that doesn't mean that they're not volunteering other places. You know, they may be volunteering with Indivisible, or they may be volunteering with Michigan for Revolution, or they may be volunteering with DSA, or with their local candidate, or with some other campaign. So it's not that they're not involved, but you know, 6,700 volunteers in a state of 10 million people is not doing well. It's just not.
And I don't know if we're like, I mean, let's hope they keep the numbers honest.
Right.
There's one thing. Since you were on the committee, you've been on this since March, right?
I've been on the State Central since 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And also the Rules Committee since 2 years ago.
Okay. So tell me what happened with the lady whose name was left off the ballot for Wayne State.
The lady whose name was left off the ballot
It was
for Wayne
Yvette
State.
McLemore. Yvette.
You know, I don't know that I know this story. I remember that there was some controversy about having to do with Wayne State and a candidate, but I'm not recalling anything. So
yeah, my understanding was that there was a young lady who we got to vote for who we're going to nominate for the Wayne State Board of Governors, and her name was left off the selection of choices that we can make.
That was at the August convention?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was terribly sick. I didn't make it to the August convention.
Okay.
It's the first convention I've missed since I joined. But yeah, so I don't know the details of that, but I will see what I can find out.
Okay. Because my understanding, I mean, I talked to her and she said that there was no rhyme or reason given. It was just left off. And then somebody else, rumor came around saying that somehow she didn't get enough signatures. But if she didn't get enough signatures,
Then they should have
I
said
had lunch with her, and she damn sure didn't know that. She
Right.
just said it was a goof up, and my name was left off. So I said, now, to me, that's a full stop.
Mm-hmm.
That means election stop,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't get the vote for anything else until we figure out this glitch.
Sure.
Because how can you have confidence in your
Right.
leadership
Right.
when that kind of thing happens? And
Yeah.
so it makes me wonder about this election. I mean, I trust that we're all good Democrats and we're going to be fair to each other. But if you have an example of somebody's name being left off the ballot, and people know that, then that is indicative of this whole backroom unfairness that is going on at the party.
Yeah.
And so when we have arguments about rules
Sure.
and people just sort of fall apart and don't want to do it, then you got to, or they say flat out, well, if you guys don't do it, I'm just going to take this from you and give it to this other committee, and then they're going to do what I say anyway.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand that.
No, the rules have to be a basis for trust in a large organization. There isn't any other choice.
But you can sue when the rules aren't followed, right?
Well, so
I mean,
remember what the DNC did. They sent their lawyers into federal court and said, and their lawyers said, we're a private organization. We can break our rules as much as we want to. And
they tried that. They tried that to keep people of color out of the Democratic Party, and there is case precedent for them not being immune to the U.S. Constitution and the laws that govern the state.
So, speaking of that, are you familiar with the unit rule and what that's all about?
Which one?
Come
on, man, how long we get?
No,
I think we're going into hour 3 now. But you did want to talk about the Dana thing. I know that's your girl.
No.
Tell me she's my girl. I didn't. Go ahead, finish.
Okay.
Let's go back to the Dana thing.
Let's go back to the Dana. So I wasn't necessarily going to.
Because I want to get it up.
Because you had limited time, but if you're willing to, I'm certainly.
I'm willing to. I mean,
okay, sure.
Let's get it out there.
Okay, cool. So I think that
you guys bust a bunch of people in. You got 3,000 people signed up.
Yeah, we
bust
did
a bunch of people into the convention.
Well, by the way, I just want to make it clear, we didn't just bus in Dana people. We made those buses available to anybody that wanted to come to the convention.
Okay.
So I just want to make that clear. It was not exclusive.
How many people who wanted to come to the convention that weren't Dana people got on the bus?
I don't know that number because we didn't track it because we didn't care who came.
Because you were rigging it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing with you, man. Come on.
That's cool.
I'm just playing with you. Go ahead. Finish the story.
Yeah. So
don't jam me up on this editing, man, because I'm joking.
No. I won't. I promise you, I won't do that. No problem. No worries. So I have seen a bunch of people push back on the party about Dana winning the endorsement. And the objections that I've heard, and maybe I'm misunderstanding them, but and the objections that I've heard is that people were upset that there wasn't a black person on the ticket until Gilchrist was Whitmer's number two. And I totally get that. Okay. And I've heard, but what I seem to hear, and maybe I've misunderstood, is a lot of people complaining about how the party did things in that case, and trashing black leadership in the party. That's a phrase that I heard. Black leadership, didn't do what they were supposed to do. They didn't get us our guy, and so from my perspective, I mean, I want more people of color involved in leadership. I absolutely think that that's critical. I also think that's true of LGBTQ folks. I know that there's a controversy about that in the black community, and everybody that has everybody needs to have a voice at the table, absolutely. So
that's what we're supposed to be about.
Right, exactly. And so what I saw from my perspective is there were reasons that I didn't particularly like Mr. Miles. I
understand. You got your candidate. Support your candidate.
Right. Well, let me just say it's purely based on the data. I'm not. I don't
nobody's
support candidate.
Black candidates just because they're black now. Let's not.
No.
I don't want to think that.
No. Well, so. I know that's not the case for the vast majority of people. I have had people tell me directly that this is why I'm supporting him, for example.
Okay.
So, but I know that's not. This
is good Michigan water.
Okay.
Filtered through.
Filtered, yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like it felt to me like what was being said, and maybe I misunderstand it, is that the party was supposed to make sure that a particular collection of attributes existed.
That we had a diverse choice to choose from.
Right.
White people, black people, Asian people, whatever. People come.
Right. And I'm totally in favor of that, but the way that the party works is well, I mean, when the rules are followed, when the rules are followed, people show up and vote, and that's who gets elected.
Right.
And there are certainly ways in which the rules haven't been followed, and in the past, and we were very, very focused on making sure that things ran well, and we did have decent cooperation from folks in the party for that. So, my question, I guess, what I want to know is when I heard those objections, what I wanted to know is what did they expect the party to do? Okay, because if they didn't expect the party to basically say, well, okay, this person
is your affirmative action candidate,
but this is the affirmative,
yeah.
Right? And to me, I'm in favor of affirmative action, but. This is a different situation, it seems to me. That's
probably not a fair. I mean, I said that. I said that in a way that that actually undermines people's sort of qualifications and credibility. And so we always want the let the people decide and get it in. I think there are two things that are going on with that.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you this. I don't know how much time we got, but I'll tell you this. It can be hard for a brother and sister in the party sometimes. We've had, I'll take you back to Barack Obama's first run for president. The state Democratic Party broke the rules and got out there earlier than they were supposed to. So all the candidates had dropped out, right? All the presidential candidates had dropped off saying, we don't want to be associated with the Michigan primary because we don't want to get jammed up by the national party. But we kept going anyway.
Sure.
And Hillary Clinton's name was on there. People got to vote for Hillary.
Yeah.
And people were fired up about Obama. And you're in Michigan and in southeastern Michigan with a lot of black folks and brown folks who were getting excited.
Yeah.
And but his name wasn't on the ballot. And the leadership, in Lansing, explaining, once you make more than 3 points. It's lost on everybody. All they know was All we know was that we couldn't vote for Barack Obama, but we could vote for Hillary. Right. And the thing about it was that the leadership put their thumb on the scale to make sure that Hillary, even though it wouldn't count in 2007, she was demonstrating strength in Michigan, and that would be a warning to the other people to just stay out, right?
Yep.
So it can be hard. It can be hard for a brother and sister, man.
Absolutely.
And so then after that, after that fiasco, same governor, Jennifer Granholm, whom I like and adore, and thought she was a great governor, if not for the Republicans, tried to get a brother to be chair, and the unions were like, "I don't know what you think you're doing." So we got half a chair,
right?
When Butch and Mark had co-chair, and then that fell apart, and then after that, along comes Dana. Well, not Dana. That's not fair. Along comes Pat, who was the establishment candidate that everybody loved. Worked for Obama, from Grand Rapids, west side of the state, all that stuff. He's puttering along, and everybody's trying to, support him. And then the convention happens. And during the convention, now I know you're saying, all these people were busted, and we had heard. I'm saying, I was not on the Pat Miles team. I did support him. Okay. But I wasn't working for his campaign or anything like that, or Dan's or anybody's. Sure. So we get to the convention, and then you could see it breaking the whole day. White folks started sliding this way, black folks started sliding that way, and that's the picture that we ended up with at the end of the day when Dana was on the stage, and you had a couple black folks and a couple brown folks, but they looked like raisins in oatmeal, taking that picture that zoomed around the world. And then with Pat, it was a rainbow. White people, black people, all these people. It looked like what we normally see with the Democratic Party. So fairly or unfairly, that was the picture. You've seen the picture. You put it up. Show you the picture. Yep. But the responsibility that the chair and the leadership that put on the convention had was to see this thing breaking and can anticipate the picture the way it was. And if you're paying any attention at all, like you're running around with Dana and y'all are doing your thing. So you're going from room to room to room, trying to convince people, rah, you're caught up.
Well, let me tell you, me personally, just to let you know, that whole, once people got onto the floor, I didn't even see that, like that picture that you're talking about, I didn't see any of that from the front. I was in the back. Watching how they were doing the tabulation and all that.
Keeping them honest, right? But when they got on stage, I mean, you saw it was in the Free Press.
I saw that afterwards. I was behind the stage.
But somebody was responsible for that. It wasn't fair to Dana. It wasn't fair to Pat. But the whispers were going on, throughout the day. Now nobody pulled their coattail, or they weren't, the leadership wasn't in tune enough to see it because. I don't know, they were running a convention. That's their fault. That picture...
Actually, you know what? I will take responsibility for that. I was in charge of the campaign. I should have thought of that. I should have been more on top of that. Straight up.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, we're a team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let them out that easy. It's like... They got to be sensitive to... It's their responsibility. Your responsibility... There are plenty of black people that voted for Dana.
Sure.
Her and Kim Worthy are tight. Everybody knows that. I don't think that anybody thinks that Dana Nessel is a bigot.
Right. No, I don't. Absolutely not. And
I don't think that at all. But the picture that got up there, and I guess the sexuality thing might have gotten in the way. I don't know. People. I mean, I supported the whole thing. We all did. We were cheering Dana on. We were like, yes, let's get our gay brothers and sisters the right to be married. We need to have that.
Absolutely.
And Shooty's a jerk, and he ain't trying to do it, and he's trying to keep it from happening.
Sure.
And we knew that was a good thing. So when she jumped in the race, who wasn't happy that she was in the race?
Sure.
But it's this idea of fairness from the perspective of race.
Right.
She ended up with a picture that I don't think is reflective of who she is as a person and as a politician.
Okay.
And it's the party's responsibility to not let that happen. Okay. When they saw that thing happening, they should have said, "Oh no, we're not. No, this is not. Dana, you can go on the stage, and Pat, you can go on the stage, but we're not going to have this picture of like looking like a little Soweto or
Yeah.
apartheid thing going on, and somebody should have pulled them or pulled you and Pat's person into a room and said, "Look, this is the way the thing is breaking. So I know that this is not what we mean for it to be. So we need to like fix this in some kind of way. And if we can't fix this in this room, meaning like I don't know how you. I mean, I got a lot of ideas for you to do it.
Sure.
But I would have said, we cannot have that picture. That cannot be the kind of picture that we project as a Democratic Party.
Okay.
So, I mean, and that was my only beef, and it I wasn't, I'm telling you, man, talk to black folks. That's what they're trying to express to you.
Okay.
That they felt wounded, not by Dana, but
Okay.
by the party.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so that kind
Right.
of situation
Right.
became a proxy for these larger issues, that a
Sure.
foil for these larger issues that
Gotcha.
we're talking about people not feeling included, and it's the
Right.
kind of stuff that you're working on.
Right.
So, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. The way that you explained it, I get that. And I just want to say I wasn't saying that I take responsibility to let them off the hook. It's just because
Follow the sword.
No, I'm not trying.
We need change, brother.
Yeah, no, we totally need that kind of change. And no, it's only because I agreed to be in. I agreed to run that, and so it's my responsibility. That's all. Buck stops where it stops.
No, you did a good job, man. You did a good job. You know what it's like to push up against the establishment.
Yeah.
And there were some people with their prejudices and their bigotry, out there. And one of the things in the Democratic Party that I think that still remains kind of challenging for us is, talking about issues of sex, the issues of race, and actually issues of sexuality. I think I think we've gotten like a lot better on the gender stuff.
Sure.
But we haven't, the sexuality thing. I think we still sort of kind of grapple with,
True. Do you
And the race thing, we definitely grapple with that.
Right. No, I really we do a lot. There's a lot of important stuff to unpack here, but I've kept you much longer.
Yeah.
But so I don't.
I hope I didn't mess it up, man.
No. You're totally cool. What I will say is though, right there we're starting to get into some really interesting stuff that I think we can have a really interesting conversation about. That we can get at some stuff that's really important. So would you be interested in coming back and
hang up.
Having a conversation about some of that stuff, about the racial issues, gender and sexual issues,
cool.
all of that kind of stuff.
Especially if I get elected chair. I want your vote, man.
Okay,
I want your vote, man. Consider me, man.
I'm considering everybody. Let me tell you, I'm considering everybody.
Just go Greg Bowens for chair on Facebook. You can find me there.
Cool. I honestly I have not decided who I'm supporting yet. I think that I think it's pretty clear who the top candidates are.
We know who the establishment wants.
But that doesn't.
Anti-establishment guy. I'm rolling with the progressives, baby.
No, that's awesome. I really appreciate that you. You've taken the time to really expand on a lot of stuff more in a more narrative form. I actually found that where we can talk about the story and how the story works to impact how people think about the world. And that's so I can see that from your from your background as a journalist and the way that you talked about how you got to from there to where you are now and all of that. That's really great stuff. And I think that regardless of whether you're chair or not, I think that you have a very interesting perspective that can help a lot of people think through things that they haven't necessarily thought about before, me included. And I'd really like to have you back and have some of those conversations.
Well, I think that would be cool. I think that it's important for us to have the dialogues. You know what I mean? And if we don't have them when the races are coming, the race for chair is coming, then we're never going to have them, in any kind of in-depth way. And if it wasn't for you guys pushing, we'd still have the same old slate thing going on, and we wouldn't have these kinds of conversations because they just didn't happen in the past.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was trying to say when I would go around to the different places to like interview. there were people that didn't know. They would say, well, who's going to be on your slate? And I said, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I said, well, you got to have a slate. I said, well, no, the rules have changed. Don't you?
Yeah.
The rules have changed.
Right.
I mean, you're endorsing. Don't you know the rules have changed?
So,
what am I talking to you for?
That's right.
You're totally not involved. You know, you don't know the rules have changed. You know, how are you going to give me, if I do get endorsed, what are you going to do? You know?
Right. Now that's
But,
you know.
but we can change stuff, man. I think we should have some absentee ballot. I'm all for people getting together and hanging out and stuff like that. But I think that there should be ways for people to vote remotely. I'm not trying to make this a contest of, you know, you got to start spending millions of dollars to be the chair of the Democratic Party.
Right.
But if we're doing the internet kind of stuff that allows for people to interact with you at meetings and to interact with you online and stuff like that, then you won't have to like drive 14 hours all the way up to the UP, you know, over the winter, you know, because they announce it the second week in December. I mean, it's just ridiculous, man. You know, so we can change some things around. We can make it easier for people to participate, and we can keep it like that. And we can get rid of all this, you know, abusing the rules to keep people out. I think you got some great ideas, and I'm so glad that I've been able to like kick it and hang with you. And, you know, I got to hang with the PCY committee and talk to them.
Yeah, that was it Samantha Wilbur and Sarah Tzetter, I think. I always forget. I always mispronounce her president. Steve Monty.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, great conversation with that, and I'm looking forward to, you know, seeing the Progressive Caucus again. You know, this weekend. I mean this weekend, February 2nd.
Right.
I just hope that I pre-registered online. With the hopes that, you know, I don't have to suffer through the indignity of showing my ID to get into the Progressive Caucus. You know, if that's it, I almost wanted to protest, like, what are you talking about? We are the anarchists. I'm not showing my ID.
Sure.
No, but, you know, I get it.
Yeah, they got to follow the rules and make sure everybody's, you know, everybody's, you know, voting in the right in the way that they're supposed to under the rules. Yeah.
I know. It just seemed like it just, you know, this last time. I mean, when I do it at the 14th district, it's all like, you know, it's pretty smooth. You just like show up, put your name on. Hey Joe. Hey Mike. Hi Greg. You know, and they look on your. Oh yeah, you're still good, or you need to re-up before like such date.
Right.
It's not a big. It's. I've never seen it be the big kind of deal it was.
Talking about 2017. Yeah, that was...
No, this last one.
In August, you mean?
Yeah, where the gubernatorial candidates were coming through.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you were sick. You weren't
there.
there.
I wasn't there at that
Oh,
one.
yeah, man. That was turning into a quiet riot. People were...
I know that one of the things that happened was that because of limitations of time, they decided that the only people that they were going to let speak were the people that they had endorsed.
Yeah.
And then they had a confrontation with
Shri,
and
which looked bad, man.
Yeah.
Kicking the brother out.
No,
See, I just told you.
No,
be hard for a brother. The Democratic Party is like.
I don't disagree with you, but
these are my people. These are the progressives.
I'm with you though. I don't think Shri is with you on a lot of that stuff.
Well, no, it just looks bad.
Shri.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying. You know, I get. No, he's probably not. I don't know. Right. I mean, you know.
I mix up because I have a friend whose name is Shri. Is Shri, and his name is Shri.
Right.
Sometimes
you confuse him?
Yeah.
Do you tease him? Say you would have made a great governor? Nah, but it's cool. Yeah. So yeah, man, help me push. Make some room.
We will. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do is make some more room for these kind of discussions. I really would like to, when we get the chance to sit down again, talk about the culture in the party that you know that doesn't want folks to criticize, you know, Democratic candidates. I mean, right now I'm starting to see it already with the 2020 you know, presidential.
Do you know we had an MSU trustee have the unmitigated gall to stand up for John Engler and say, no, we shouldn't replace him because you know we need stability. I was like, after John Engler made those remarks, you know, about the victims of the Larry Nassar victims, and I told him and Ingham, I said, you know, You know why they can do that stuff? Because they're not afraid.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting a call from the party saying, "What are you doing?"
Right.
You know.
Right.
And to me, for me, and I know the person who said it. I've known him for years. You know, I would be like, get a call, and then if you're not going to agree, I'm going to get some people to come down there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not going to agree, then we're not. You know, we're going to have a serious discussion about supporting you in the next.
Right.
In the next election.
So that's actually. Let me ask you one more question. I think it'll go quick, and we can end on this.
Yeah.
Is how do you feel about the party? So let me back up.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, the party is the people. It's just a mechanism that the people use, the members of the party use to process information and perform and develop actions and then execute those actions. Okay. And as such, and the our elected representatives are our representatives. They work for us.
Right. I totally agree with that.
And so one of the things that I think that we need to do is we need to hold their feet to the fire on what they promised when they ran and they got our support, and B, if they're not fully where we think that they ought to be, to push them farther. And my question is, do you think that the state party itself should be involved in helping to organize members to do that kind of holding our own electeds' feet to the fire?
Yeah, I think accountability is a big thing with me. So I always talk about membership, accountability, and that just drives me crazy because we don't uphold the contract that we have with each other. And it's because we're acting like a community and not a corporation. I mean, we're acting like a corporation and not a community.
Right.
Get tired now. We're acting like a corporation and not a community, where we can lean on each other and hold each other accountable for what we do and don't do. It doesn't mean that every time you like disagree with the Democratic position that you're going to get a call from the chair or like 50 people are going to show up and scream at you. No, we got your back, right? So what we want to do is give the politicians the tools that they need in order to be able to move our stuff forward. So for the state reps and the state senators who are in this constant churn of turnover, they should be able to lean on the party for the institutional knowledge that they need as opposed to a lobbyist.
Right.
Because they're only going to give you
what they're getting paid to give you.
Exactly.
Sure.
So there's that. And then we elect these new people and we throw them to the wolves. They get a little training when they go up to the state, and that's it. But we should be the place that they can turn to for guidance.
Sure.
You should be here, you should be there, we can help you. And helping them establish relationships with other people as much as we can. And that means that people who were veterans of the party, who have held seats, we shouldn't abandon them. If they still want to be involved, we should have them be involved.
Sure.
And they can provide guidance to the new people that are coming in. They can also be great assets for the party because now they have some institutional knowledge.
Sure.
But they lose or they get turned down and they just sort of like fade away.
Right.
We need to grab those folks and bring them back and keep them engaged.
Right.
The other thing is that it's our role to be. We need to be an independent party. We are supposed to be the conscience of the people that we elect. So the people that get elected, their job is to govern for everybody and all that stuff. Gretchen, the governor, Whitmer, her honor, gets to say, hey, I'm the governor for everybody, and I'm going to reach across the aisle and work it all out. That's not our job.
No.
We're the party. We're the shock troops. Our job is to give her the support that she needs. Give Dana Nessel the support she needs. Give Jocelyn Benson the support she needs by clearing the deck for them. When they're pushing stuff forward and you've got these obstinate Republicans in the way, or you have these other forces that are in the way, it's our job to get out there, get in the districts where they are, and push this out there in the media. So some folks are interviewing for a job here, in terms of like the chair thing. I'm talking about being a leader and advancing the cause. And you cannot be afraid to be the conscience of the governor or whoever it is. Because if we don't have conversations, if we don't say, look, you're drifting too far to the right on this issue, then that's what they're going to do. And when they do that, that's what makes people go, well, there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats.
Yep.
At all.
Right.
You know, they all want the same kind of stuff. They'll say anything that they want to get elected.
Right.
And that's not an easy position to be in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am not afraid to have those conversations with folks, but it's not out of malice. It's out of, you know, remember who we are.
Right.
You know,
Right.
now what does that mean? You like publicly chastise people? I don't know. I mean, if you got somebody, you know, I mean, the Republicans, they should be chastising Trump up and down.
Sure. They certainly don't.
But they don't.
Right.
And, you know, so, but no.
But I think, I mean, like, for example...
A letter of admonishment to somebody who has voted against a declared Democratic position, I think can be warranted.
Okay.
I really do. A vote,
Okay.
you know, a rebuke
Right.
from, you know,
Right.
the party,
Right.
I think could be warranted.
Okay.
You know, in certain circumstances.
So for example, if the
I wish
party...
you could strip somebody. We need to. I'm sure some people want to kick Trump out, but
Yeah. Well, no...
that could be a rule, though, right?
Well, in fact, there is a rule for getting Trump out. They're just not following it.
Oh yeah, no, right, yeah. It's called impeach the.
They don't
I
even
didn't
have to
say
impeach
that.
him to get him out. They don't even have to impeach him to get him out. That's another
another
long
discussion.
story. That's another discussion.
But I'm saying I'm saying in terms of Democrat, because that's interesting, because Lisa talks about this, I talk about this. You know, to some degree, we all kind of talk about it, and that is, you know, when is crossing the line? You know, how far? Like, who the heck said it was okay for Andy Dillon to go work for Snyder as a treasurer and help spread the emergency management thing across the land? I mean, and he could still identify as a Democrat and come to our, no, man, no, you are not welcome.
So actually, let me give you my perspective on that, because it's a little bit, it's almost where you're at, but a little bit different, and that is that he as an individual can do whatever he wants. He shows up at a Democratic Party meeting, he's going to get an earful. And if he wants to keep getting an earful, sure, he can come. He can keep coming back. I'm not going to tell him he can't be a member, because that's against the rules. Actually,
right? I know.
But I am going to stand up and say what I think about what he's doing. And I think that should be the same, whether it's, you know, Andy Dillon, or whether it's Gretchen Whitmer, or whether it's or whether it's Bernie Sanders. You know,
right.
I'm not. You know, there are things that I criticize him for.
Well, I mean, but this is not the criticism. I mean, but there's an institutional criticism. You know, to be admonished by the state legislature as a state rep or a state senator is a big deal. To be admonished by Congress is a big deal. You know, I think that we should, and that's the whole body. You know, so it's something that they did completely outside the bounds of whatever their rules are, right? But I mean, for the Democratic Party, we should be able to do the same thing to help hold people accountable. I mean, before you get to the point of you know, encouraging people to run against that person in the next election, you know, or something like that. Now, for me, I'm thinking that, you know, we need to take our thumbs off the scale totally when it comes to elections. I think that incumbents should have elections, that they should be willing to have the conversations with people, and that the Democratic Party should not, I'm probably not even going to get any votes from those guys now, but the Democratic Party should not be, you know, used as a prop for an incumbent just simply because they're an incumbent. Now, I have total and great appreciation for the seniority system and the way that it works in the state legislatures and stuff like that, you know. But the pork barrel, bring home the bacon rules have been, you know, tossed out of Congress for a long time, and the kind of money that came with influence from being in charge is not really there anymore. You know, and you're not arguing with me about that, but so it's true. You know, I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
there are some still ways that they do it, but a lot of that has gone.
But not like the old days where it's like where you're like, hey, Greg,
right?
I'm gonna hook you up with this Air Force base, and you know.
Right.
Ypsilanti.
Right.
Just because I can.
Right.
You know, it doesn't work like that anymore. So, but the power of the incumbency is so strong anyway that you don't need as the party to put your thumb on the scale, for that person. What we should be doing is making it clear that as a party, we are going to not put our thumb on the scale. We're going to make sure that the everything is fair and square as much as we can here.
Fair, open, honest discussion, debate.
Exactly. So that means that you got to sign a pledge to just to be fair and square, and we can have some opportunities for people to have like healthy debate in an environment that is non-biased. But you can't do that now. If we were to have like let's say, and we should have these because people need to see like what's going on in a primary, but folks don't trust the party enough right now to be able to do that. So let's say Senator so and so had a primary opponent. There was a vigorous primary going on, and the other people really don't really have much of a chance. I shouldn't even say that. I should just say, there was a primary going on. I think it would be completely cool to have the Democratic Party sponsor a debate, right? But have like independent journalists or something like that be the ones that do the moderating. In a primary, I think that would be okay. Now, does that mean that the party should endorse somebody ahead of the voters making the?
No,
I don't think that. I don't think that we should do that. I don't think that we should do that. And I wish that county, districts didn't do that. Like the CD districts. I wish that they didn't do that because, man, the hurt feelings are just, it's brutal after that.
Right, and it's ridiculous. I mean, here's the thing that I come to that is that if you are using the system to prevent having that kind of a debate with your opponent, what that means is you're afraid that that your argument isn't going to win,
or that you're too good to have that discussion with Democrats. You know what I'm saying? It's these are your people. Either way it goes, I mean, you win the primary, we're going to support you.
I had actually thought that they might think that they're too good to have that discussion. That never crossed my mind. But you're right, there probably are some people like that.
Some people feel like they're too busy for this, and they got all this stuff is going on, and why does the party just support them? And who is that person? How dare they run? And that kind of thing. And even a protest candidate can be useful. We see that in mayoral elections. Very popular mayor. You got somebody running around out there saying it there, but you should have. It's worth having the discussion. Because it's the only time you're really going to get to have the discussion. And so, I think that there were a lot of things that happened in this last election that we could all be very proud of. People worked really hard up and down the ticket. The two things that I said about weed and about anger at Trump, I think those are very important factors. I'm not taking anything away from Prop 2, 3, and the other ones, but those are some pretty motivating factors that aren't going to be there, in the future. And Senator Debbie Stabenow, who I think she's a wonderful senator. I really do. I do. She's been around. She's been for labor, stuff like that.
She wants to take away my right to boycott Israel if I want to. And I just don't understand how a Democrat could. I mean, it's the same kind of boycott that was used against South Africa. To combat apartheid. And
but see, there again, there's we got the blinders on. Let's not act like that Jewish folks have not been persecuted in ways that other people haven't, and that people could use that issue as a way to reinforce their bigotry. So saying boycott Israel is just another way of speaking negatively, could be used as a way of speaking negatively about Jewish folks. And so I'm just saying that there has to be. I'm not saying that people should get a pass. What I am saying is that we need to be aware and sensitive of that, because the Republicans, they'll use that in a heartbeat.
So let me just say, first of all, I'm Jewish.
It's no way that Debbie Stabenow that race should have been that close, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
With John James.
Right.
and then let's get back to
let's
see how race gets to everything.
Yeah,
man?
no, it does. And
You do sort of look like a Asiatic Jew with that hat on.
Well,
are you walking? Are you walking?
My last name is Sharon. In the Middle East, they pronounce it Sharon.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
No
Yeah,
relation. But,
no relation.
Okay. But so my problem is that whatever you think about BDS, we should not have senators. I would argue we should not have senators that vote to restrict U.S. citizens' freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom of association in order to defend foreign power.
Where did that happen?
This is just recently that well.
Can
It's
you
come
send
up-
me some
come up
stuff on
several-
that?
Yeah, well,
So I can understand it a little better because I've heard some like, like in the forces on the right are trying to paint Rashida Tlaib as some kind of like they're disparaging her, and we need to be standing up to that as a party, and not letting them get away with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's again
Right.
that's what I
agree.
do. I'm like I would get out there immediately and start smacking them around and saying you are the last one to be talking about calling somebody prejudiced or bigot or anything like that. But these issues that we have, I said it. We're very good at talking about gender. We're not so good at talking about race. And it's because we want to sometimes forget the context of things. Mm-hmm. So I really would like to see that thing that you're talking about.
Sure, we'll do.
I am so it's just such a we're Americans. We want people to be free.
Yeah.
And we think that that's an automatic sort of thing that happens around the world, right? I mean, when the Cold War was going on, it was pretty simple, right? Communism, not good. Democracy, good. Get over the wall, you're straight. But it's a little more. I think it's a lot more. It's a lot more complicated now, and the idea that this president has done so much to undermine our position in the world that it becomes even hard to talk about, international issues without that influence that he's had out there, saying that, well, as America, we've done bad things too. It's like, yeah, but you're the president. You're not supposed to be undermining, our efforts by saying, we know that, some things have been done wrong. We also know that there have been people who have specifically broken the law. Right. Iran-Contra, for example. Right. To try and get around what Congress wanted to do.
Right.
So I think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Mm-hmm. I think that we should be able to find a way to create or help create the solution there. But we should at the very least be able to talk about it, and trying to muzzle Americans at the end of the day is only going to make it worse.
Yeah, I agree.
So hopefully I didn't, you guys are probably going to throw me out the party now.
No.
Crazy guy talking all this stuff, but in terms of, we have to understand how things, sort of like work nationally. And I'm not doing this so that I can hope to become, national chair or, get a job at the White House or something like that, or work for the governor or anything like that. Right. This is our chance, man. Today. We have to be in the fight right now, today.
Yep.
And I can't, I love a good administrator. I think they're awesome. I like good plans and all that stuff. There are a lot of smart people in the Democratic Party. I'm talking to one right here. And I think that if we do the work that we need to do today, open up the party more to everybody, open up that doggone house in Lansing, make sure that we're doing more stuff with folks and working collaboratively with them on the issues on the ground where they are right now, then we won't have to wait for some magic plan in 2020 to save us. Right. Or we won't have to spend all this money trying to organize them, because we will be on there. And there will be no reason for us to worry about standing up to the national campaigns. Because, we'll be like, dude, we're already on this. Right. Right. And if you don't want to work with us, then, good luck. Right. Because guess what? I got candidates that I'm trying to get elected trustee.
Right.
I've got trying to get this guy mayor. I'm trying to get the state house and state senate back. I'm trying to make sure that our congressional people can get elected, and our senator can get elected. So if you want to act funny, on your presidential campaign thing, then more power to you.
Okay. No, we got to build this up from the grassroots. Otherwise, we're not going to have good people to run.
We're not. We got to get more progressives out there, man. We got to get them in the pipeline right now. I think that we have to be bold in our pronouncements. I think that we need to get in line with the whole green thing in ways that we haven't seen before.
We'll have to talk about the Green New Deal next time we.
Yeah, we need. I think we do, and I think that we need to let the corporations know that you can't strangle us anymore.
Right.
We're done with that.
Right.
So I mean, I can go on and on about it, but I'm like, we have to be radically inclusive of what's going on, and we can't keep doing the same thing.
Right.
And if we just let the things happen as they're happening right now, I'm telling you, man, 3 months from now, you and I will be sitting down here talking, whether I'm the chair or not, and but hopefully I'll be the chair if you vote for me.
Good campaigning.
I'll be saying, I told you what they were going to do.
Yeah.
These Republicans in the state legislature, they're using, our governor Gretchen Whitmer as a foil to build their base. They're using our Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson and her trying to reach out to everybody as well as a foil. I don't think she's going to be all that cooperative, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I'm really not expecting Dana Nelson to be
she won't be cooperative with that. Yeah.
Right, but the governor is extending this olive branch, and blah blah blah, and they're just gonna. We've seen this movie before, man.
It's what Obama did when he.
Oh my God! Yeah, Obama. You're kidding me? The guy was just like, "Oh, I want to try." We could have got some sensible health care, but they were like, "Man, we don't want to help people get well."
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? We're trying to make money. And that whole free stuff doesn't work out for us. But I tell you what, we had single payer health care. You better believe the insurance companies are going to figure out how to get some money out of that.
Well,
because I mean, think about it.
Well, remember, you understand.
They're not going to go out of business.
Prior to the 70s, it was illegal to make profit off of it.
Oh, right.
So it's not like we have. It's not like we haven't had that before.
Right. But you know what they're going to do? It's going to be a two-tiered system. So it's going to be free health care for everybody. But rich people don't want to be sitting up in a hospital with you.
No, well, that's what
they want to be in a nice private hospital, and you're going to need insurance to pay for that, man.
Yeah. No, that's true. The insurance companies will still make money in those ways, but they'll be much smaller, and that's what they're fighting against, and that's why they're backed. Blue Cross Blue Shield folks backed Gretchen Whitmer because she was willing to say. Affordable access, not universal.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. That's probably I'm just going to lose me some votes, but not that she supported me anyway. Because I'm the conscience of the party. The establishment's not going to support you. Come on. Who knew that I was going to be like that? But anyway, because I was Dennis Sargent's press secretary. He used to be mayor for Michigan State Supreme Court. Come on. But I'm totally with you on that, and we need to have those discussions.
Sure.
And if we're an independent party, then we can have those discussions and move forward. I'm surprised that we don't have a resolution as of yet that supports that position. Well, maybe I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I am surprised because guess what? Now that we have, the 3 seats, and the governor's taking a public position on that thing, it'd probably be harder to get a resolution passed within the party saying that we want this healthcare system.
Right. Well, we've got Yusuf Rabi already has a plan for Michigan. And so that's one of the ways that we can start. I think that I think we'd be we should be doing a resolution to support that. I think there was one.
I'm trying to remember. It seems like I thought that there was something out there.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that again.
But you know what? The resolutions, we pass them and they're just sort of there, right?
Right. No,
they don't do anything.
Right. No, that's one of the things about holding people's feet to the fire. We're going to pass these resolutions. One of the things we ought to be doing as a party is,
just saying,
we
pass these resolutions. You got that D on your shoulder. That means you agree. If you don't agree, then
we have a different discussion.
We can have a different discussion, right?
Sure.
But if you, and then maybe that means you need to be paying attention to what's going on in the party,
right?
And getting your people there,
right?
And coming there yourself and making these arguments about the resolutions that we're passing. But if you're not engaged because you're too important doing other stuff,
right? Right.
You know, but yeah, we should. At the very least, you know what we could do? Anybody that's, I mean, there are lots of things I would love to do to be able to get the farm team going and stuff like that. But when people are coming to us and they're saying, you know, agreeing that, you know, they want to run as a Democrat and they're not going to do blah, 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 they should know, you know, what they're signing up for and where we stand. Sure. So that they're just not pimping us for our resources and then going and working against our interests. Sure. So we should definitely do that, you know, and we should do a report card.
Right. No, I think that's a great idea. I like the idea of a report card on our elected representatives. You know, that takes a lot of effort to put together to really get all that information together.
No, I'm just talking about based on the resolutions and our thing. It's like, did you vote that way? Did you not vote? There's a program they got out there that you can track the bills.
Right.
But somebody ought to be able to do
somebody
that.
ought to be able to put that together. Absolutely. And I'm saying I think that ought to be a party function. You know, where we look at, you know, here's, like you said, here's our resolutions, here's our platform. This is what we as an organization decided that we support and that we agreed to. And, you know, you're part of our organization. We worked for you to get you into your position. You work for us. Right. Not just the party, your whole constituents, but you came from here. Right. And you know, here's a report card on how you're doing, and that should be something that I really think that should be something that the party should look at doing. The question is to be able to make sure that it's done fair. Right. You know, that's the issue.
And you got to be able to trust leadership in order to do that. Right. And right now you can't trust leadership.
And the only way that you can build trust like that, like I said, is to have
the rules.
To have the rules. Exactly.
My man and the rules. A rule guy. I'm with you. The rules, baby.
All right, man.
Let's have some fair rules.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you coming down here.
This is really cool. I like this.
Yeah.
Anti-monopoly. I didn't even know that was a game.
Yeah. Well.